In the room, Nami slowly opened his eyes, and the first thing that caught his eye was Luffy's familiar face. Looking at Luffy, who was sitting on the edge of the bed, resting with his eyes closed against the head of the bed, Nami, who had just woken up, felt quite satisfied. With a slight smile, "I want to reach out and touch the cheek that I have been missing since 5 years ago." But the movement of reaching out seemed to have affected some injuries, and Nami frowned slightly. Luffy opened his closed eyes as Nami reached out. Seeing Nami's slightly frowning brows, Luffy turned around, lifted Nami up slightly, and leaned gently against his chest. Seeing Luffy wake up, Nami wasn't shy, and let Luffy lean against his chest. The quilt slipped from his neck, and Nami didn't care at all, just quietly enjoying the silence for a while. "Okay, I'll forgive you this time, but I don't want another time." Seemingly returning to his usual demeanor, Nami left Luffy's chest after a while. Luffy didn't speak, just nodded at Nami, agreeing. Seeing Luffy nodding, Nami started to drive Luffy away, indicating that he was going to get up and let Luffy go out first. Luffy said he was puzzled. The two of them have done everything now. But Luffy didn't stay any longer. After explaining that Zoro and the others would leave tomorrow, Luffy came to Nami's room again under Sanji's murderous gaze. Just got someone's body, Luffy can't ignore them. But now that Nami has recovered, Luffy can naturally leave. Watching Luffy leave, Nami lifted the quilt. Glancing at the blooming red plum on the sheets, I was slightly stunned, and then quickly took the clothes by the bed and put them on. Although this time it was indeed a little impulsive to give himself to Luffy, but Nami did not regret it. As early as when Luffy rescued him, Nami felt that he might never forget him in this life. Therefore, when Luffy invited him to go out to sea, Nami just confirmed that the other party would not agree like the Murloc pirates. "Don't think about those anymore." Nami got dressed and put away the sheets, and then walked out of his room after Luffy. Miss Nami. The first time he saw Nami come out, Sanji's eyes flashed with love, and his body twisted weirdly. But it seemed that he noticed something. Sanji didn't rush in front of Nami, just shouted from a distance. "Since Nami is awake and Sanji is ready for dinner, let's eat first, and then discuss the next itinerary. By the way, I will explain Haki and Devil Fruit to you. Logtown is about to go. There is Smoker, Logia's demon fruit power. Luffy thinks it is necessary to popularize Devil Fruit in advance." At the dinner table, Luffy focused on explaining the existence and role of Haki. After explaining that several people can usually try to perceive this power, Luffy explained Devil Fruit again. "I mainly told them about the elementalization of Logia Devil Fruit, as well as some buggy Devil Fruit abilities that appeared in the original work. For example, Ghost Fruit and Childlike Fruit are not easy to guard against. The others are just a general introduction to the major categories of Devil Fruit and the common weaknesses of seawater and seastone." At the same time, Luffy also asked if Sanji and Usopp had any idea of eating Devil Fruit. With Luffy's current strength, it's not difficult to get a few Devil Fruits, but you have to wait until you enter the Grand Line. Nami's Devil Fruit Luffy has been planned for a long time, but it is quite difficult to obtain. It is a pity that there is no Blackbeard's ability to capture Devil Fruit, otherwise, whether it is Thunder Fruit or Lion Fruit, it is a very good choice for Nami. Of course, it would be best if there was news about Yunyan Fruit. Luffy also told Garp to pay attention to the news of Yunyan Fruit, but since Garp didn't contact Luffy, there should be no related news. As for the existence of Yunyunguo, Luffy asked Garp to confirm that it does exist. In addition, Luffy also asked Garp for the Devil Fruit Manual, but it seems that Garp is not interested in Devil Fruit, so he does not have the Devil Fruit Manual. Although he promised Luffy that he would get a copy for Luffy, there was no news either. So this old man is really not reliable at all. As for Zoro, Luffy didn't think it was necessary to ask. After seeing the strength of Hawkeye, if Zoro went the way of Devil Fruit, it would only be a brain what. I've read the Devil Fruit Pokédex before. If I can really meet that fruit, I'll definitely eat it without hesitation. As for the other fruits, forget it. Hearing Luffy's question, Sanji immediately expressed that he had a favorite fruit. Hearing Sanji say this, Luffy also suddenly remembered what Sanji's favorite fruit is. But if it's just a transparent fruit, Luffy thinks it's not as good as Germa's battlesuit. But after thinking about the reason why Sanji wanted to eat the transparent fruit, Luffy lost interest in paying attention to Sanji. Usopp, do you have any ideas? Even if you don't know which devil fruits there are, do you have any abilities you want to acquire? Luffy looked at Usopp again. Besides Nami, Usopp is indeed the one who needs devil fruit the most to increase his combat power. Although his shooting talent is indeed very high, but the power is not enough. Of course, if he can master armament hockey, that's another story. But even in the plot 2 years after the original, Usopp has only awakened observation hockey, which is really lacking confidence. And if you're going to rely on shooting to eat, you can't just rely on those weird seeds. Although sometimes there are unexpected effects, but the power is limited after all. If possible, Luffy would still like Usopp to eat a devil fruit to increase his strength. Well, after seeing Luffy's strength, I did have the idea of whether I can keep up with your footsteps. If there is a suitable devil fruit, I will eat it. Usopp, who was asked, answered Luffy without hesitation. Originally thought that he would become a great sea warrior by going out to sea, but after seeing the cruelty of pirates and the power of Hawkeye, Usopp felt that he was too naive before. Perhaps going to sea with Luffy was the right decision for him. Otherwise, if you are alone, maybe you will be killed by pirates in an unknown corner within a few days of going out to sea. But if you follow Luffy to the sea, if you are too weak, do you have to stay under the protection of Luffy? Then why go out to sea? Since there is a chance to get devil fruit, Usopp doesn't want to miss it anyway. Nami, do you really need to go back to Kokoyashi village? Luffy sat on the lovely sheep's head of the Mary and looked back at Nami, who was standing on the deck aft of the sheep's head with his hands on the side of the boat. Today's Nami is still wearing long-sleeved jeans, but the simple outfit shows Nami's figure and youthful beauty. But now Nami seems to be a little different from before, and there is a more mature and graceful style between his eyebrows. The long orange curly hair was still casually draped behind his head, waving to one side under the sea breeze, and the bangs on his forehead were slightly messy, which were quickly smoothed by Nami. Luffy, who was still looking at the sea in the distance, was a little reluctant to look at the calm sea after turning around. Seeing Luffy's appearance, Nami smiled lightly, and then shook his head, indicating that he didn't need to go back. Damn it, I'm so envious, that guy Luffy is too happy. Sanji, who was busy in the galley, glanced at the two people on the bow of the Mary from time to time, especially when he looked at Luffy, his eyes flashed with jealousy. Next to the main mast of the Mary, Zoro was still waving the barbell unmoved. After a few days of recovery, Zoro's injuries are almost healed. The physical fitness of people in the pirate world is outrageous, not to mention that the injuries cut by Hawkeye at that time looked terrifying, but in fact it was only a little skin trauma. Therefore, after a 2-day rest, there was another nutritious food specially prepared by Sanji, and it naturally recovered quickly. And having a new understanding of Haki and Zantai, Zoro can be said to be working hard these days. The result of this is that there is one more rice bucket on the ship in the past 2 days, and the food is about to run out again. As for Usopp, he's also been tinkering with shells in the warehouse for the past 2 days, extracting gunpowder to make the ammunition he needs, after Luffy brought up the lack of attack power of his shots. However, Usopp seems to be particularly obsessed with slingshots in terms of weapons, and I don't know why. You can see the land in front of you, and we're going to Log Town soon. Let's go up and supply first. When the time came to noon, a piece of land appeared directly in front of the Mary. It didn't take long for the Mary to sail into the port. Because there was no bounty, it was naturally not necessary to choose a remote coast to moor. After the Mary landed safely, Luffy and others also disembarked one by one. This is pocket money, 100,000 Bailey per person, and Sanji's extra 500,000 to buy supplies and food. Nami finally jumped off the Mary with a bag, and walked past everyone, giving Luffy a stack of Baileys. Sanji got a little more Bailey because he had to buy food. The treasure that had been recovered from the sunken ship of the Golden Dragon was still in Nami's room. Because Bailey is temporarily enough, there is no need to exchange it. And how can there not be a few boxes of treasures on the pirate ship? Although it is not yet a pirate, it is estimated that it will be soon, right? Marine's intelligence is not vegetarian after all. Naval Headquarters Marshal's Office. Sengoku looked at the information in front of him with a headache. The information showed that it was about a new group of suspected adventurers who appeared in East Blue. And the name that bears the brunt is what gave Sengoku a headache at this time. Monkey D. Luffy, 17 years old, born in East Blue Windmill Village, suspected to be the grandson of Vice Admiral Monkey D. Garp, who is capable of rubber fruit, set off from Windmill Village in May this year. Injured Colonel Monka of the 153rd Branch in Shields Town, but because of Colonel Monka's style, the 153rd Branch did not report the news. Deter East Blue's famous pirates in Orange Town, and offer a bounty of 15 million Baileys to the pirate captain, Buggy the Clown. Destroy the Black Cat pirates in Shirobe Village, and defeat the suspected former captain of the Black Cat Pirates, Beiji Kella. But the intelligence shows that Beiji Kella has been arrested and executed 3 years ago, and the executor is 153 Branch Colonel Monka. In the sea restaurant Barati, to solve the East Blue's largest pirate force, the Creek Pirates, Captain Creek was solved by Hawkeye, one of the 7 warlords of the sea who appeared in East Blue for no reason. Also in the restaurant on the sea, he fought with Hawkeye and retreated, and then communicated with Hawkeye, and it was suspected that the two knew each other. Because it has never posed a threat to the world government, and has not taken any action against the civilians, no branch has reported a reward for the time being. Since this person can fight against Hawkeye without losing, it is inferred that his strength is enough to pose a threat to the branch outside the headquarters, and it is recommended to contact the other party and ask for security. Did you have the strength to play against Hawkeye at the age of 17? Garp, you really gave me a problem. The information only said that he was recruited because of the words that were suspected to be the grandson of Vice Admiral Monkey D. Garp. If there is no such sentence, it must be added later. If the other party refuses, then offer a reward like this. For that suspicion, Sengoku directly ignored it. When Garp came to ask him for devil fruit and a picture book, Garp told him of Luffy's existence. At the time, he refused Garp's request because of concerns. I just didn't expect the other party's information to appear in the world government's intelligence department so quickly. And looking at this situation, the world government has the intention of putting a bounty on the other side. After all, an uncontrolled powerful combat force can easily give birth to a powerful pirate group. Instead of waiting for the other party to develop their power, it is better to put a bounty on him directly. Maybe someone can kill him before his power develops? As for Garp, it's not the hands of Marine in the world government. If you want revenge, Garp can go to the person who killed your grandson to take revenge. Sengoku's headache is that Garp told himself about Luffy, and according to Garp, it is obviously impossible for Luffy to join Marine. And Luffy also told Garp that as long as Marine and the world government don't put up his bounty, he won't fly the pirate flag. But looking at the current situation of the world government, Luffy's hanging of the pirate flag is a sure thing. This old guy is already enough of a headache, and his son has become the world government's most wanted criminal. Now why does this grandson look like a problem child? Is there no one in this family who can be reassuring? Sengoku rubbed his eyebrows hard, not knowing what to do for a while. Has your own the resourceful general reached the limit? According to their route, should we go to Logue Town now? Anyway, let's notify General Marine in Logue Town first. Although he knew that the other party would not accept the recruiting, he still had to show it to the guys from the world government. By the way, who is the General Marine from Logue Town? This head hurts, and I can't even remember well. Ah, by the way, Logue Town seems to be in charge of Smoker at the moment. Sengoku only felt his head hurt even more for a while. Then, I'm going to see One Piece's execution platform. You can go shopping by yourself. Just go back to the Mary before evening to gather. In this town of beginning and end, when you come to the world of One Piece, how can you not take a look at the place where One Piece died? Then I'll go buy a knife. I'm going to buy food. I'm going to buy ignition powder materials. Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp each said a word and left. What about you, Nami? Do you want to come with me? Luffy looked at Nami. Since the two had a relationship, Luffy wanted to take Nami with him now. No, you can go by yourself. I'm going to buy some clothes and record pointers. With enough time to learn sailing, Nami, who has learned about the Grand Line, will naturally not make the same mistakes as before. Okay, then I'll go first. Nodding to Nami, Luffy walked to Logue Town alone. As for the Mary, spend some Bailey and leave it to the port workers to look after it. This Logue Town is really prosperous. Along the way, there are countless pedestrians coming and going, and shops on both sides of the road are also dazzling. Observation hockey unfolded, and the whole picture of Logue Town was displayed in Luffy's mind. I have to say that this upgraded observation hockey can even perceive non-biological towns. It actually has such a strong aura. Forget it, let's take a look at the execution platform first. Luffy was slightly surprised by the strong aura he felt. But thinking that his cheap father appeared in Logue Town in the original book, that breath should be him, right? But Luffy wasn't going to look for him either, he wanted to see himself appearing naturally. I don't know him. Ignoring the breath, Luffy walked in the direction of the execution platform he sensed. It was still early anyway, so Luffy wasn't in a hurry, just looked around with great interest and walked unhurriedly. This was the first time he had officially wandered around since he came to this world. Luffy is also very curious about the things in various stores, but I just look at it, and it is basically useless. But even if it was a leisurely stroll around, Luffy quickly reached the destination of the trip. It's just a steel-framed execution platform, and there's nothing special about it. Luffy looked at the execution stand in a trance, as if the surroundings were back to when Roger was executed. The man in the captain's coat and the shackles on his gloves, with a wild smile at the corner of his mouth, was escorted by Marine to the execution platform. One Piece, is he the One Piece? Look, he's still laughing. The exclamations from the crowd from time to time did not affect the man who was sitting on the execution platform waiting to be executed. The soldiers on the left and right who were about to execute the execution, with their mad smiles and aura, sweated on their foreheads, their bodies were stiff, and their hands clenched the execution blade tightly. The originally noisy square was silent at this time, as if waiting for the end of the man who conquered the Grand Line. Just as the soldiers on both sides raised the blade of execution to execute the execution, a slightly excited voice came from the silent crowd. Hey, One Piece, where did you hide all the treasures you found? Is it really the Grand Line? You got it all. That legendary treasure, that one-of-a-kind treasure, One Piece. Ha 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 ha. Hearing the questioning voice from the audience, the man who was waiting quietly for the execution suddenly burst out laughing wildly. Want my treasure? Don't speak without permission. Execution. Hearing the man's sudden opening, the executioner shouted loudly, and immediately prepared to execute him, but he still couldn't stop the coming great era. If you want, you can give it all to you. Go find it, I put all my treasures there. As the man's arrogant voice fell, the blade of the execution ground also pierced into his body at the same time. The square, where no one spoke at all, was dead silent. But this dead silence didn't last long. When the figure completely lost his voice, the crowd suddenly burst into an unprecedented shout. What's up with this immersive feeling? Luffy looked at the execution platform for a long time and was speechless. Are you telling me these things? One Piece. The era of the great pirates that you have opened has not had a substantial impact on the world government, except for the destruction of more people. After staring for a long time, Luffy turned to leave. Having seen the end of One Piece, where is the beginning and the end? What is your path? Luffy. The man wrapped in a cloak stood upright on the roof of the city hall behind the execution stand. Quietly looking at Luffy who was slowly walking away, he whispered softly in his mouth. On that rough face, half of the cheek was covered with mysterious tattoos. Until Luffy disappeared from sight, with the breeze blowing, the man in the cloak also disappeared from the roof. Leaving the execution stand, Luffy soon met Sanji and Usopp. The two of them carried a big fish with an elephant trunk in tandem. It seemed that they had already bought what they wanted to buy, and were going to return to the Mary. Luffy, come and help, this fish is too heavy. Usopp, who was carrying the heavy fish head, was overjoyed when he saw Luffy walking towards him. Just exercise your body. Luffy had no intention of helping. Ignoring Usopp's whining cry, Luffy headed first in the direction of the Mary. When I came back, there was nothing to do. When they reached the entrance of the town, the three of Luffy would meet Nami and Zoro who came at the same time. However, Zoro's expression was a little embarrassed, and at a glance, he knew that he had committed an old problem again. As soon as he asked, Zoro, who came out of the weapon shop after buying the knife, headed in a certain direction with fascinated confidence. Kabuto made a few turns and went back to the weapon shop. And Nami, who originally bought clothes at a clothing store, saw Zoro passing by the door 3 times within 10 minutes. As a last resort, Nami could only give up the idea of continuing to stroll, grabbed the collar of Zoro, who was passing by the door again, and dragged him all the way back towards the Mary. I have to say that Zoro's Kai is also quite amazing. He doesn't get lost to particularly far places, and he often keeps spinning around in the same place. It was thanks to that, though, that Nami had caught him, otherwise it was a question of whether Zoro would be able to get back to the Mary before evening. Hey, I didn't expect you to be an ultimate road idiot, Luzauto. Sanji, who had disliked each other with Zoro since the day they met, naturally taunted him when he got the chance. Huh? I saw you, a lustful cook, being played around by women again. Zoro, who was originally embarrassed because he was dragged back by Nami, immediately hit back after hearing Sanji's taunt. Even carrying a big fish didn't affect Sanji and Zoro fighting together. But it was hard work. Usopp was originally carrying the heavier fish head, but now Sanji and Zoro were fighting. Usopp's whole body was shaken by Sanji's movements, along with the big fish. Are you two bastards trying to kill me? Usopp, who was dazed by the shaking, finally couldn't help roaring at the two of them, and at the same time joined the scuffle. Luffy ignored the sparring of the three and took her hand in Nami's somewhat delighted eyes. Then she took the bag containing the clothes from her other hand, and the two walked towards the port holding hands. Sanji, who was still fighting with Zoro, saw that Luffy actually held Nami's hand, and his eyes immediately burst into flames of jealousy. Wanting to get rid of the entanglement with Zoro Usopp, but just reaching out to Luffy, Zoro immediately seized the opportunity to punch down. Then, Sanji didn't continue to resist, just watched Luffy and Nami go further and further in tears. Although it took some time to fight, everyone returned to the port before the sun went down. However, when Luffy and the others came to the port again, a group of people were already waiting here. Sanji, who was still looking at Luffy with a twisted expression, returned to normal the first time he saw the outsider. However, after seeing a woman on the opposite side, the body actually had a tendency to twist. Monkey D. Luffy? The man in the lead was wearing a white jacket, with short gray-white hair combed into a big back, and 2 cigars in his mouth. That fierce expression matched Zoro's. White Hunter, Smoker. I just don't know what you Marines have to do with me. Hearing Luffy say it was Marine, Zoro and Sanji instinctively took a fighting stance. Nami still held Luffy's palm, and didn't say anything because of the Marine's identity. Usopp was a little embarrassed, though, and his legs twitched again when he heard Luffy say it was Marine. But this seems to have become his habit, and I don't know if he is really afraid or just because he is used to it and can't change it. Although I don't know what's special about you, since it's an order from above, I won't ask, but given your answer, I'll take different measures. Order from above. Although he knew that his information would soon be known to Marine, he didn't expect to be approached by Marine before he reached the Grand Line. I don't know what Marine wants to do. If it's arrest, it doesn't seem like I've been offered a reward, right? What's more, if they really want to be arrested, what kind of nonsense are they talking about? Let me ask you, do you have any plans to join Marine? Smoker didn't talk nonsense, he just said what he meant. The sinking spreads on both sides of Luffy and Marine. Not to mention that Zoro, Sanji and the others were surprised by Smoker's words, they never thought that Luffy would become Marine. Even Marine on Smoker's side was a little shocked. Before coming here, the menacing appearance of Smoker made the soldiers think they were here to catch pirates. Who knew he was here to invite him to join Marine? Colonel Smoker. What's going on? Just after Smoker said these words, the female soldier beside Smoker couldn't help but speak. And her opening instantly caught Zoro's attention. Kuina. No, she's not Kuina. Zoro's absence didn't attract anyone's attention. Both Marine and Sanji wanted to know why Smoker did this, and Luffy's answer. No special reason, just an order from above. Smoker replied nonchalantly, but those eyes kept staring at Luffy. What if I don't join? The answer Luffy has known for a long time: in this sea, there are no so-called adventurers. Anyway, you will definitely be rewarded later, so I will arrest you here. There was no hidden answer, except that it was Smoker. I heard that Smoker, the White Hunter, is a Marine who hates evil and is not afraid of power. Why do you want to arrest me, a commoner who has never done evil? Luffy doesn't hate Smoker, but if he gets in the way, Luffy doesn't mind teaching him a lesson. Looks like you've made a choice. Smoker didn't answer Luffy's question, just kept his eyes fixed on Luffy as white smoke began to spread over his hands. Seeing that his own boss was planning to do something, the surrounding Marines also raised their guns and aimed at Luffy and the others. Oh. Do you want to do it? Zoro on the side has recovered from his stupor. Seeing Marine around him raise his weapon to face himself and others, he also put his hands on the 3 knives that were once again intact around his waist. Sanji on the side lit a cigarette and looked at Marine around him calmly. As for the big fish, it was completely handed over to Usopp at this time. With Nami slightly behind him, Luffy stared directly at Smoker across from him. So Marine wants me in. Why don't you join us, Smoker? I really appreciate you. Don't be kidding. From the moment you refused to become Marines, you were already classified as pirates, and my job is to arrest you. Although somewhat unhappy with the order above, Smoker had no intention of defying. He also wanted to see, in this East Blue, what is so special about people who can be specially invited by the top. You are not allowed to shoot, I will arrest them myself. Smoker ordered to Marine, who raised his gun, while looking at his lieutenant. Tashigi, step aside too. Because you didn't order the soldiers to shoot, I won't hurt your men, but you may be making a fool of yourself. It seems that the other party doesn't really want to arrest him, he just doesn't know the specific reason. Zoro, Sanji, you protect Nami and Usopp and go back to the Merry first. It's good to have someone stop me and teach me a lesson. Don't kill me. Zoro and Sanji complied, leading Nami and Usopp towards the Merry under the glare of the surrounding Marines. Although Logia Devil Fruit is invincible in the eyes of ordinary people, it is not invincible for those who have mastered Haki. Looking at the other's limbs that had turned into smoke, Luffy smiled. In the blink of an eye, he appeared behind Smoker. Then, Luffy stretched out his hands wrapped in some inexplicable smell, and in Smoker's terrified eyes, grabbed his hands that turned into smoke. Then slammed hard and threw Smoker out before he could react at all. After the thrown Smoker hit the wall, his whole body turned into smoke, like a splash of water. Armament Haki. Smoker's face sank as he regained his human form, apparently not expecting Luffy to be a master even Haki. Although I knew that it would not be easy to be invited by the people above, it was far beyond Smoker's expectations to be able to get master Haki at East Blue. So surprised. Glancing at Zoro and others who had already returned to the Merry, the surrounding Marines wanted to do something, but because of Smoker's order, they could only watch them climb onto the ship. Smoker also didn't order the Marines to capture Zoro and the others. At this time, he was no longer as calm as before. Smoker's main target is only Luffy, as for Zoro and the others, it doesn't matter if they go or not. What's more, Luffy's strength exceeded Smoker's expectations. At this time, even if he wanted to keep Zoro and the others, he was overwhelmed. Why? Do you want to continue? You can't threaten me with your smoke fruit alone. Luffy looked at Smoker calmly. Now that Nami and the others have boarded the Merry, they have nothing to worry about. As for whether those Marines will make a move, looking at their shocked appearance, it is estimated that they are more worried about whether Smoker will be killed by Luffy. HMPH, don't think I only have this level. Smoker snorted, then his right hand continued to turn into smoke, and then slammed into Luffy. White Snake. The smoky fist jerked away from Smoker's wrist. With the white smoke connecting the fist in the arm, it swam towards Luffy like a white snake. This is the Logia Devil Fruit, doesn't it look good? For Smoker's moves, both Zoro and Sanji felt that they could easily dodge them. They felt that Luffy had been too cautious in telling them to be careful with Logia. It's no wonder they have such an idea. They don't know where the Logia Demon Fruit power is difficult until they face the Logia Demon Fruit power in person. Especially for them who haven't mastered Armament Haki yet, Logia Demon Fruit power means invincibility. What's more, the smoke fruit that Smoker eats is still very weak, which naturally makes them feel that the Logia Devil Fruit is just like that. Facing the white smoke fist coming straight at the door, Luffy's head gently turned to the side and dodged. Caught you. Seeing that Luffy didn't move, Smoker grinned. The white fist that was dodged by Luffy seemed to come alive. The smoke that was going straight behind Luffy suddenly turned and began to spin down around Luffy. The white smoke connecting the fist in the arm wanted to bind Luffy like a rope. However, just as the white smoke was about to tighten, Luffy suddenly disappeared from Smoker's sight. Smoker's pupils shrank suddenly, the originally raised smile suddenly solidified, and then his eyeballs suddenly bulged out, and his whole body bowed into a ball and flew backwards into the distance. Where Smoker was originally, Luffy appeared there with his right hand punching. If you want to arrest me, at least you can't do it now. Luffy looked at Smoker, who was bleeding from the corner of his mouth when he punched him, and said indifferently. You can't do it even later. Luffy muttered to himself again. Colonel Smoker. Marine, who was standing around, saw Smoker vomited blood by Luffy, and ran towards Smoker. Looking at Smoker being supported by Marine, Luffy also lost interest in continuing to fight Smoker. Just here, if you're entangled, I'm going to take action against your subordinates. Don't forget, we are already pirates now. With that said, Luffy didn't wait for Smoker to respond, turned and jumped on the Merry. Get ready to go to the Grand Line. From today, we are pirates. The same words are now being said to everyone on the Merry. Actually, from the beginning, we didn't have any other choice than becoming a pirate, right? Zoro grinned slightly at what Luffy said. The chefs of the sea restaurant were all pirates, but now I'm just a pirate too. Sanji exhaled a puff of smoke, his expression indifferent. I originally wanted to be a brave sea warrior. In my opinion, a pirate is a symbol of a brave sea warrior. Usopp is not to be outdone. You told me this 5 years ago, and I promised you 5 years ago. Nami brushed her hair lightly and smiled sweetly at Luffy. Seeing everyone's unchanging eyes, Luffy couldn't help laughing. Yes, from the very beginning, the only way I could go is to become a pirate. Then, the Straw Hat Pirates officially set sail today. Luffy smiled proudly as he watched Smoker and the group of Marines watching him and others from the shore. Usopp, raise the pirate flag. Nami, take a look at the heading. Let's go. Oh, as Luffy called out one last time, everyone on the Merry responded at the same time. Colonel Smoker. On the shore, Tashigi supported Smoker, who was still on the ground. A group of Marines looked at the ship leaving the port, the skull flag wearing a straw hat slowly raised, and they were speechless. What are you doing here? To prepare the warship, we are also heading for the Grand Line. Seeing his stupefied subordinates, Smoker let out a loud shout. Then, under the somewhat astonished eyes of the sailors, he gave the order to prepare for the Grand Line. However, Colonel Smoker, our duty is to guard Logue Town. If we chase the Straw Hat crew to the Grand Line, it will be a AWOL. Although he knew he couldn't stop Smoker, Tashigi, as an adjutant, still needed to remind Smoker. When did you see me obeying orders? Smoker retorted, took 2 cigars from his jacket pocket and lit them. The previous cigar vomited out of nowhere with the blow Luffy hit in the stomach. Monkey D. Luffy, no, maybe it's time to be called Straw Hat Luffy, I'll catch you. Smoker gritted his teeth secretly, although the other party was not an evil person, but since he became a pirate, Smoker was obliged to arrest the pirates who escaped from his hands. Even being a pirate is not what the other party wants. Pirates? This is the path you chose. Now that you have made your choice, keep going. On the highest roof in Logue Town, Drago looked at the pirate flag flying on the Merry and sighed slightly. Is that so? Sure enough. Okay, I see. Hanging up the phone bug, Sengoku rubbed his eyebrows with a headache. For the message from Smoker, Monkey D. Luffy refused to be Marine and officially set sail under the name of pirate, Sengoku had expected. It's just that how much bounty should be set for him, Sengoku can't make up his mind for a while. Bang bang bang. Just as Sengoku was having a headache, there was a loud knock on the door, accompanied by the annoying shouting of some old guy. Yo, Sengoku, are you busy? Would you like some donuts to relax? Before Sengoku could respond, someone knocking on the door kicked the door open. Then, with a bag of donuts in his hand, he just stuffed it into his mouth and walked in carelessly. Seeing Garp kicking in the door, sitting on the sofa, and leisurely eating donuts, Sengoku couldn't help but get angry. Dude, I'm here with a lot of headaches because of your grandson. It's fine if you don't come and share it for me, and you're still here to seduce me with donuts? Thinking of this, Sengoku stood up straight from his seat. Seeing Sengoku getting up, Garp thought that Sengoku was going to sit next to him and eat with him, so he moved a position generously. Unexpectedly, Sengoku, who approached, did not sit down, but snatched the bag of donuts from Garp before he could react. Then he tilted his neck, and the donuts in Vice Admiral's bag poured into his mouth under Garp's terrified eyes. Garp, who finally realized what was going on, jumped up from the sofa and grabbed Sengoku's pocket. But it was too late, and there was not a single donut left in the bag. Sengoku, on the other hand, was chewing the donut that was completely in his mouth. Ah! My donut, Sengoku, you bastard! Garp roared and grabbed Sengoku by the neck, shaking him desperately. Although Garp was choking and shaking desperately, Sengoku had changed from his previous depression at this time. He only felt that after stealing Garp's donut, his whole mood improved. Island somewhere in the New World, then. That man is Hawkeye. Why are you here? Don't be nervous, I'm not here to fight, I'm just looking for your boss for something. Just as a certain younger brother staggered to report, Hawkeye went in directly. Hey, rare guest. Are you here to fight me? I'm sorry, I'm a little uncomfortable after drinking too much, so the duel can only be left for the next time. The red-haired man sitting on the stone, with 3 claw marks running through his left eye, should have looked like Hawkeye's face, but he looked ridiculous because he was drunk. I'm not interested in a showdown with a drunk. I'm here only because I saw the boy you mentioned. Ignoring the red-haired man's mischief, the eagle-eyed sharp eyes stared directly at the drunk man who had no image. But when he heard Hawkeye say the boy, the drunk man seemed to wake up in an instant. Even the surrounding cadres who were still making jokes gathered their attention at the same time. Luffy. Skilled conqueror's haki, strong physique, and deeply developed devil fruit ability, it's really hard to imagine that there are such outstanding young people in the remote East Blue. Luffy is really good at hearing praise from your mouth. How about it? Did you let him see the power of the world's strongest swordsman? Since you can know that he uses hockey and fruit abilities proficiently, it must be a shot, haha, that precocious kid must have been taught a bad lesson. Shanks, who had a nostalgic look in his eyes, didn't make a sound. The laughing voices came from the cadres next to him. Lessons? Maybe it won't be long before he hits you. No, Hawkeye, even if you look down on us, we will be drunk by us. Hearing Hawkeye's words, the surrounding cadres sneered. Only Shanks, at this time, has no doubts about Hawkeye's words. But he didn't say anything, just suddenly took out a jug of wine from the side and threw it to Hawkeye, who had been looking at him. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Thank you for bringing me the news of Luffy. Come, I'll give you a toast. Shanks held Griffin's hilt in his right hand, and his intact left hand picked up the unfinished jug next to him and gestured to Hawkeye. On the sea not far from Logue Town, the Mary was floating peacefully. Because it was the night, Luffy did not let Nami continue to direct the direction, but prepared to rest for a night and set off tomorrow. In the cabin of the Mary, Luffy and the others were eating dinner made by Sanji. Usopp, after dinner, let's go and complete the pirate pattern on the mainsail of the Mary. Now that he has officially become a pirate, it is time to draw the skull on the unfinished Straw Hat skull pattern. Understood, leave it to me. For Usopp, who finally became a pirate, he was still in a state of excitement. By the way, Nami, did you buy them clothes? As if thinking of something, Luffy asked Nami, who was sitting next to him. No, I only bought yours. What's wrong? Nami answered with a look of course, but was a little curious as to why Luffy asked. The climate of the Grand Line is ever changing, and if it snows and you don't have winter clothes. Luffy was only halfway through when he realized that Zoro, Sanji and Usopp were all looking at Luffy. Ah, so, I bought a lot for you. If they don't mind, they can wear yours. Hearing Luffy's words, Nami understood. I have indeed heard that the climate of the Grand Line is changeable, but according to Luffy, it seems that it is more than changeable. The climate of the Grand Line, one second may be the summer with the scorching sun, and the next second may be the snowy winter, so it is necessary to prepare clothes for each season. Luffy briefly explained it, then paused, feeling like it wasn't a big deal. Of course, several of them are rough-skinned and thick-skinned, and they should be fine even if they are frozen. Don't be wordy, take out your clothes later. Seeing that Luffy had a tendency to not care about their lives, the three of them immediately sharpened their teeth and yelled at Luffy. In this way, everyone had a happy dinner, and then went back to rest, preparing to raise their spirits and enter the Grand Line tomorrow. Of course, Luffy was much stronger than them, and sneaked into Nami's room in the middle of the night after they were asleep. Early in the morning, Luffy came out of Nami's room, before anyone else got up. As for Nami, he was still asleep. Sitting on the sheep's head on the bow of the Mary, Luffy was slightly intoxicated by the rising sun that had just risen from the sea level. On the day that it is about to enter the Grand Line, it seems that the weather is good, and there should be no more storms like the original. It's a good one too, Luffy thought to himself. Conqueror's Haki entanglement, do you really have to go through that 8 trigrams? Now the armament Haki flow is almost master, much faster than expected. As for Devil Fruit, to be honest, Luffy doesn't think Gear 4 is appropriate unless it's necessary. After using it, the armament Haki will be completely consumed, and it will take time to restore the Haki before you can continue to use it. In Luffy's opinion, it is not as convenient as the current third gear developed by himself in Haki flow, and may cause higher damage. Moreover, after learning Conqueror's Haki winding, coupled with the third gear that does not deform too much now, it will be more flexible, and it can be regarded as a flatter to use. Before Luffy crossed, the plot progressed during the Wano Kuni period. The obvious enemies that appeared at that time, except for Aunt Kaido, was Blackbeard with double fruit ability and everything is a mystery I am. As for Shanks, Luffy prefers that he is not his own enemy. In the case of Marine, it depends on the development of the form, but there is a high probability that he will appear in the form of an enemy, right? Secretly thinking about the future plot, just taking advantage of the current free time, I can plan a little bit of the route after entering the Grand Line. The general direction, at least until Saboti Archipelago, can follow the plot. Of course, the premise is that there are no surprises. After arriving at Saboti Archipelago, he estimated that he would have to let Zoro and the others go to practice for 2 years. Otherwise, the time is too short. No matter how talented Zoro and others are, they cannot keep up with the fighting intensity of New World. Are Luffy wandering the Grand Line for a few years too, but it's a waste of time. And let Zoro and the others practice for 2 years, they may be able to do some preparations, and some people may be able to pull on their boat. Or deadlifting Ace to keep him from going to Blackbeard? Luffy thought about it, or forget it. Even without the shock fruit, Blackbeard can get other fruit abilities, unless he steals the dark fruit before he eats it. And, at this point in time, Blackbeard should have eaten dark fruit, right? After thinking about it, Luffy still thinks it would be better for Summit War to play. When I knew the plot, I didn't need to go to the underwater prison to waste time, and by the way, I let Blackbeard take advantage of it. And with his current strength, even if Ace is caught, as long as Marine wants to execute Ace, he has a great chance to rescue Ace. Not even Whitebeard has to die. The most important thing is the plot in 2 years. Why don't you go to Wano Kuni during those 2 years, hook up Yamato or something, invite aboard. Luffy thinks this may work. Yamato is quite good in both strength and character. As for wanting to be an Odin, then let her do it. Is there anyone other than Yamato who could possibly be invited on board? Luffy bit his finger and thought about it. Aokiji? Before he knew his purpose, Luffy wasn't sure if he was going to attack. He could protect Nami and the others in his hands. If their own powerful combat power cannot be invited, what about those who are heaven-defying? Mononoke Princess Perona, Lucky Fruit ability Bakura, and even the former Marine Regression Fruit Ain. These people should all be invited, right? In addition to inviting people aboard, Nami and Usopp's Devil Fruit also have to be on the agenda. It is best to get it before 2 years of cultivation, so that there will be a 2-year buffer period, and you can get used to the fruit ability. What are you thinking, Luffy? At some point, Nami had appeared behind Luffy. I glanced at the sky, and before I knew it, the sun had fully risen. As a result, after thinking about it by yourself, is there still no qualitative decision? Luffy was a little helpless, but then shook his head again. These things should be considered later. As long as one's own strength can be raised to a very high level, then these so-called considerations are completely dependent on interest. Moreover, judging from his current strength, perhaps he does not need to wait too long. Just before entering the Grand Line, think about whether you have missed any important information and what happens after you enter the Grand Line. Luffy didn't have a specific explanation, and Nami couldn't understand it no matter how much he said now. That's it. Nami didn't ask any more questions. For Luffy, Nami now trusts him wholeheartedly. He just needs to determine the direction for his voyage. Since everyone is up, let's go. While Luffy and Nami were chatting, Zoro and the others also yawned and walked out of the sleeping cabin. Seeing that everyone was up, Luffy stopped thinking about all the other things. Taking back the chaotic thoughts, Luffy shouted to the group of Zoro who had been energized. Then, Nami directed everyone to adjust the direction of the Mary. It was just east blue, and the Mary didn't yaw much even after the night had passed. After correcting that little angle, the Mary officially set off towards the entrance of the Grand Line, Upside Down Mountain. Before the ship was about to enter the canal up the mountain by the current, Luffy decided to let everyone have a launching ceremony to celebrate the ship's entry into the Great Ocean in the original book. Asking for a wine barrel from Sanji, who kept the drinks and ingredients, Luffy took the lead and stepped on it with his right foot. I want to travel around the world, across this ocean. Nami followed Luffy as he lifted his slender right leg. I'm going to travel the world with Luffy and draw a map of the world. Luffy glanced at Nami, then back to Zoro. I want to become the world's #1 swordsman. Zoro lifted his right foot at the right time and stepped on the barrel. I want to find all blue. This is Sanji's voice. I want to be a brave sea warrior. With everyone watching, Usopp finally lifted his right foot onto the barrel. Grand Line, here we come. Then, amid the cheers of the crowd, the Mary rode the current and entered the canal leading to the top of Upside Down Mountain. Because of the clear weather, the Mary entered the entrance that only one boat can enter. Then, following the upward current, the Mary entered the top of the mountain at a very high speed, and then rode the current downward at a high speed from the other side, and soon came to an open exit. The Straw Hat Pirates have officially entered the Grand Line. This should be the twin points marked on the nautical chart. The Mary, which was rushing down the mountain with the current at high speed, finally stopped slowly. Looking at the lighthouse in front of them, Zoro and the others were excited. Even Luffy couldn't help but feel a little emotional, and finally entered the Grand Line. Whoa whoa whoa. Just when Luffy and the others were still in the excitement of entering the Grand Line, a strange roar came. Then, a huge shadow quickly rose from the calm sea. The black shadow stood upright, and the height above the sea was 20 or 30 meters. On the top of its head, there are criss-cross scars. A closer look reveals that it is a huge whale. Ah, how can there be such a big whale? Seeing the huge whale that suddenly surfaced and blocked in front of the Mary, Usopp panicked instantly and ran back and forth on the Mary's deck. Even Zoro and Sanji couldn't help but have cold sweat on their foreheads. Nami hid behind Luffy the first time the whale appeared. Clinging tightly to the corners of Luffy's clothes with both hands, he looked at the big whale screaming. Although Luffy wasn't scared, such a huge whale still surprised Luffy for a while. This was the first time Luffy had seen such a large creature, either in a past life or in the present. This should be Laboon, right? Luffy looked at the huge whale in front of him, and already knew the origin of the whale in his heart. Just when a few people were still in shock and fear, something that made everyone even more tearful happened. I saw that the huge whale that had been standing on the sea suddenly opened its mouth. That fully opened whale mouth is enough to swallow an unknown number of Marys. Just after the huge whale grew its mouth, a huge suction force came out of the whale's mouth. Under this force, the calm sea where the Mary was originally located, the waves rolled in an instant and turbulent currents formed. Following the whale's open mouth, the Mary was forced to sail towards the whale's mouth, driven by the current. I'm going to be eaten by a whale. Luffy, think of a way, we're going to be eaten. Damn it, this is too exaggerated. Luffy, who was shaking his body desperately by Nami, had to hug Nami tightly. It wasn't that he was afraid of Nami being thrown out, but that Luffy felt that if he didn't move, he would be stunned by Nami. Although the sea outside was rough, the currents that flowed directly into the whale were not much ups and downs. The Mary drove quickly and steadily into the dark environment. It didn't take long for a light to come, and everyone except Luffy had a feeling of closing their eyes and waiting to die. There is actually a sky. Aren't we being swallowed by a whale? Huh? There's a house there. Does anyone live here? A few people were talking with you and me, completely forgetting the scene where you just burst into tears. Luffy looked at the small house not far away and thought a little. I don't know if Crocus has any useful information. Or ask him if he has any medical notes or something to prepare for Chopper. Luffy will no longer consider whether he can successfully invite the crew. Just when everyone was still sighing about this wonderful space, another huge creature suddenly jumped out of the water. Different from just now, this time the creature rushed towards the Mary, obviously intending to attack the Mary. What's the deal this time? The continuous fright finally made Usopp unable to help collapse, sitting on the deck with one buttocks, holding the mast in tears and shivering. It's the King Squid, Luffy, get rid of it. Nami, who had been behind Luffy since the beginning, grabbed Luffy again and shook him. Luffy was helpless, and just as he was about to take action, two piercing sounds came. Whizzing, two spears pierced from the back of the King Squid, and the tips of the spears penetrated from the front of the King Squid facing the Mary. Afterwards, the King Squid, who had swooped aggressively towards the Mary, froze and fell down. The splashing waves shook the Mary violently. After the King Squid fell into the water, a large net was thrown directly over, and the corpse of the King Squid was caught in the net. Luffy looked at the source of the spear in the net, which was the only small house in the space. It's a flower. Because of the location, Sanji could only see a few petal-shaped spreads over there. It's human. Someone is dragging this King Squid. Nami, who was standing behind Luffy, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Her position could clearly see the situation on the other side. Did that old gentleman kill the King Squid? It took only one blow. After finally seeing the person on the other side, Sanji looked at him in disbelief. And the old man who dragged the King Squid to the shore also looked at Sanji. The sharp eyes made Sanji nervous for a while, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. This feeling made Sanji seem to be back in the scene where he was shocked by Luffy a few days ago. Just as Sanji was nervously waiting for the other person to speak, the old man with the strange petals on his head suddenly ran to the reclining chair next to him. Then he lay down directly under Sanji's stunned eyes, and took out a newspaper to read by the way. You speak a word. Sanji, who was frightened by the old man's eyes before, saw that the other party was lying down and reading the newspaper so suddenly, his image of a reclusive expert instantly collapsed. The unbearable Sanji suddenly roared at the other party. And Usopp, who was shivering with fear by the King Squid, was no longer afraid after seeing the King Squid being killed. If you want to fight, Laozi will accompany us, we have cannons. Hearing Usopp's words, the old man lying on the reclining chair finally reacted, and looked at Sanji and Usopp with sharp eyes again. Don't say such things. It will kill people. Who do you think will die? With the first experience, this time Sanji was not intimidated by the other party's aura. The understatement of the answer once again allowed Sanji to break the defense. It's you. Don't be so angry, old man, can you tell us who you are? Where is this place? Zoro on the side couldn't stand it anymore, and asked the old man in a self-kind tone. Is it proper etiquette to state your name before asking others? The old man did not answer directly, but looked at Zoro with the same eyes. Zoro was not frightened, and nodded after hearing the old man's words. Yeah, you're right, sorry, my name is Crocus, the lighthouse keeper at Twin Points, 71 years old, type Ab, Gemini. Zoro, who was full of confidence, broke the defense in an instant. If it wasn't for Usopp's grasp from behind, he would have drawn his knife and slashed at the old man. Peeved. Looking at the familiar and funny scene in front of him, Luffy couldn't help laughing. After hearing Luffy's laughter, Crocus, who wanted to continue talking, finally noticed Luffy. Crocus was slightly taken aback after seeing the familiar straw hat, but he didn't show any strange emotions. I also asked who I am. This is my private villa. You broke in. I also want to ask who you are. Crocus continued what he had just said. We should have been swallowed by a huge whale, but here. Nami couldn't go on talking about halfway through. After all, it didn't look like a whale's belly at all. Is this a whale called Laboon? Ignoring the puzzled looks on the Mary, Luffy looked at Crocus and asked. Oh? Boy, you know it? I have never told anyone the name of this whale. Logically speaking, apart from the Rumba pirates who left this whale here, he should be the only one who knows. However, the boy in front of him wearing a familiar straw hat called out the name of the whale Laboon. Crocus raised his eyes slightly. Could he be a descendant of someone in the Rumba pirates? Know a little, and I have news about the Rumba pirates. There are some things you don't need to hide from what you know. Even if people wondered why he knew so much, Luffy was confident enough not to explain anything to others. Crocus didn't know how to react to Luffy's straight ball. It's not a good thing to do, but how about I want to trade this news for things like Mr. Crocus medical notes? Luffy didn't beat around the bush. If his foresight made him and Zoro stronger, then there was no reason to hesitate. It seems that you are not a simple teenager. It is a rare thing to know the identity of his doctor. If you hadn't specifically inquired about it, generally no one on the ships passing through here knew that he was a doctor. And Luffy not only knew, but even had news about the Rumba pirates that he had never heard of. Crocus had to wonder what Luffy really was. As a ship doctor on the One Piece ship, you should recognize this straw hat. Luffy took off the straw hat that had been on his head, held it in his hand, and looked at Crocus. Luffy, what did you just say? One Piece's ship doctor. The Zoro people who didn't understand what Luffy and the old man were talking about were shocked when they suddenly heard Luffy say that the old man in front of him was the ship doctor of One Piece. How many people would never have thought that when they entered the Grand Line, they would be able to meet the crew of the legendary One Piece? Are you sure this isn't a joke? Especially Nami, who had already pulled Luffy's hand into his broad chest at this time, with an expression on his face that wanted to ask the truth. Seeing this scene, Sanji's eyes were spitting fire, and he gritted his teeth jealously and had no choice. It's such a nostalgic title. I didn't expect that now. There are still people who know me, a reclusive old fellow. Crocus, who was still a little wary at first, let go of his vigilance after Luffy took off his straw hat. Someone who can let Shanks give away the straw hat must have something special. Actually admit it. But Luffy, how did you know that? Seeing the other party admit their identity, Nami and the others were surprised and more puzzled at the same time. Since it's the person that the original owner of this straw hat is optimistic about, then I won't hide it. Boom. Boom. Just as Crocus was about to say something, there was a violent shaking. Nami fell to one side without realizing it, and Luffy quickly pulled her back. Zoro and Sanji on the side also grabbed the railing of the boat for the first time. Only Usopp didn't react immediately, and was directly knocked down on the deck by the violent shaking. It can be said that on the first day into the Grand Line, Usopp has endured all kinds of hardships. What? What happened? What happened? Although he fell on the deck, Usopp also grabbed the mainmast and asked with a trembling voice after fixing his body. Crocus, who was originally standing on the shore, also grabbed a coconut tree next to him for the first time, stabilized his body, and quickly jumped into the seawater that was actually a whale's stomach juice. The specific situation will be discussed later. I'll go and calm down Laboon first. Crocus, who stuck his head out of the water, said to Luffy and the others, letting him dive into the water again and swim somewhere. Luffy was holding the railing with his right hand, and his left hand was firmly around Nami's waist. In this situation, even Luffy had no better way. Now we'll have to wait until Crocus sedates Laboon to calm it down. Finally, not long after Crocus left, the shaking of this space stopped. After Luffy and the others stood firm, Crocus swam again from the sea of stomach acid. Since you have news about the Rumba pirates, come with me. Just now that Laboon has calmed down, he will also tell it. Luffy pulled Crocus to the Mary, and then the Mary headed for an exit under Crocus's guidance. It's really amazing. It actually made the sky in the belly of a whale. After coming out of the whale's stomach, Usopp's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but wonder. At this moment, on the coast of Twin Points, the huge whale that had swallowed the Mary was standing there quietly, with its body facing the direction of the upside-down mountain, and its eyes seemed to be looking at somewhere. Hey, Laboon. Luffy jumped off the Mary and walked directly to the shore in front of Laboon. He seemed to hear Luffy calling himself, and in those huge eyes, the eyeballs moved slightly and glanced in the direction of Luffy. Brook is still alive. He ate the yellow spring fruit. Although he died once, he came back to life under the power of the yellow spring fruit. Whoa 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 whoa. Hearing Luffy's words, Laboon's eyes seemed to have the figure of the exploding head playing the violin. Crocus, who got off the Mary, paused slightly when he heard Luffy say Brook's name, then found another stone and sat down. Although it's a bit strange now, I'm sure you can recognize him. How about we make an appointment? Looking at Laboon, who has been calling since hearing Brook's name, Luffy smiled. You can't keep hitting the red line until we meet next time, and in exchange, I'll bring Brook to you next time we meet. How about that? On the coast of Twin Points, Crocus quietly watched the Mary and the figure in the straw hat on the Mary. Is he the one you're waiting for? Roger. With a light sigh, Crocus turned his gaze to Laboon, who was also looking at the distant figure, and smiled slightly. It brought me good news. Now I can finally relax. This old bone of mine. Naval Headquarters Intelligence Service. About the new group of pirates mentioned a few days ago, the Straw Hat Pirates. The leader of the Straw Hat Pirates, Monkey D. Luffy, is finally determined to offer a reward of 90 million Baileys. A bounty was spread out on the display board. The portrait has only the upper body. The person in the portrait is wearing a red waistcoat jacket and an ordinary straw hat on his head. One hand rests on the top of the straw hat. The shadow cast by the pressed hat brim slightly covers his eyes. The corners of his mouth rose up on his handsome and determined face. Below the portrait, a line of money is printed on it, which is the 90 million Bailey just mentioned by the Intelligence Department. The first reward was as high as 90 million Bailey. Is it too high to look at each other? To be able to play against Hawkeye and not lose, I think 90 million Bailey is too little. But after all, it's just the first reward. If the amount is too high, there may be a bad response. But no matter what, since the first bounty was 90 million Baileys, it must have been extraordinary. If it is not dealt with in time, there may be another powerful force on the sea. Windmill Village Banquet Bar. Hey, everyone, come and see. That kid Luffy has a bounty. The door of the bar was pushed open, and a villager rushed in excitedly holding a reward list in his hand. Oh, really? How much is the reward? The guests who were drinking in the bar showed excitement after hearing the words of the person with the reward list. It's as if the objects on the reward list are not others, but themselves. 90 million Bailey, the first reward is 90 million Bailey. The person holding the bounty didn't sell anything, and announced loudly. Wow, that kid Luffy is too good. You can't read it wrong, right? Oh, it's really 90 million Bailey. Doesn't that mean that there really was a big pirate in our village? Yeah, great. It's good. What's good? There are such pirates in the village. Why are you so happy? The door of the bar was pushed open again, and this time it was the elderly village chief who came in. Ah, it's the village chief. The village chief is here too. Ha ha ha. Makino, give me another drink. Hearing the guest's words, Makino refilled the guest with a glass of wine, and then poured another drink from the counter to the village chief who had just sat down. That face, which usually had a gentle smile on it, was now staring at the posted bounty. Orangetown, Mayor, there's news about the boy in the straw hat. In the bustling town, a certain villager also held a reward list in his hand and hurriedly ran towards the mayor's house. Hearing the voice, the mayor hurried out and took a look at the reward list from the villagers. Monkey D. Luffy. Was it you who drove the buggy pirates away at that time? But you were obviously not the one who did evil, so how could you be rewarded? Finally knowing the name of the figure that he hadn't seen at the time, the mayor was full of doubts about this reward list. West Lob Village, Miss. there is news from Mr. Luffy and the others. Butler Mary, who walked in from outside the room, held a reward list in his hand and showed it in front of Kaya. Kaya, wearing glasses, put down the medical knowledge book she was studying, and took the reward list from the butler with a little excitement. Mr. Luffy. The fist that slammed into Chloe at that time not only saved Kaya's life from Chloe's hands, but also caused ripples in Kaya's originally calm heart lake. That eldest lady, who has always been like a canary and can only live in a mansion like a cage, has really longed for the outside world for the first time. See restaurant, boss, the boy in the straw hat has been rewarded. Ah Jin, who came back from buying ingredients from outside, still held a newly bought reward list in his hand. Jep, who came out of the kitchen, took the reward list from Akin. A reward of 90 million was offered. It should have been caused by the duel with Hawkeye, right? But this also proves that the kid is really powerful. Sanji can follow him. Maybe he can really fulfill his dream. Thinking of this, the corners of Jep's eyes were a little wet, and that stinky brat of damn it finally had his own way to go. New world somewhere. Hey, boss, Luffy's bounty is down. Biting a chicken leg, Lucky Roo glanced at the newspaper in the hands of a certain younger brother, and snatched one of the reward lists. Actually, a reward of 90 million was offered for the first time. Perhaps what Hawkeye said before is true, and he may be able to catch up with us soon. Why, are you afraid? Shanks was not surprised that Luffy was offered a bounty of 90 million. On the contrary, I felt that this should be the world government's scruples. It was the first time that Luffy had been offered a reward, so he didn't dare to set it too high, so he only had 90 million Baileys. Hey, boss, it's not like this is a joke. Ha ha ha, when that day comes, I can't let Luffy underestimate it. I wanted to beat that precocious brat for a long time, ha ha ha. At this time, on the Mary, Luffy and others who had not received the news were doing another thing. I said that the two of you sneaked onto our boat without our consent. Do you have to give a reasonable explanation? On the deck of the Mary, Luffy, Nami, Zoro, Usopp, Sanji, several people were forming a circle at this time. In the circle, a man and a woman were kneeling on the deck with fearful faces. Please don't hurt us, we just want to take your boat to the next island, woohoo. Are you taking us for fools? As for the two people who appeared on the boat, Luffy naturally knew their origins. But I have to say, sometimes teasing people does make people feel good. How? How? We really encountered a shipwreck, and the ship was destroyed because of it, so we had no choice but to secretly take your ship to the next island. Stop talking nonsense, show the way, where you want to take us. Now that he showed up, Luffy saved the process of asking Crocus. Otherwise, if you choose another route, your advantage of being familiar with the plot will be useless. Ah. It's so cold. On the way to Whiskey Peak, the changing climate of the Grand Line was revealed to Luffy for the first time. Just after leaving Gemini Cape, it would still be sunny and cloudless. However, before the Mary went far, the sky started to snow. The snow was getting heavier and heavier, and soon the Mary was covered with a thick layer of snow. Under Nami's order, the two who sneaked onto the boat also started shoveling snow. Fortunately, Nami bought a lot of clothes for Luffy before, which naturally have clothes for all seasons. Even if she still wears short sleeves, she won't catch a cold due to her physique. But don't wear warm clothes, wear short sleeves to get cold, and Luffy is not stupid. In his spare time shoveling snow, Luffy glanced at Nami, who was commanding at the bow, and looked down at Nami from time to time to record the pointer. All I can say is that good-looking people look good no matter what they wear. The light yellow long padded jacket is still a slim fit, with a scarf around his neck, and his bright orange long hair is still softly scattered on the back. As for Miss Wednesday, the Princess of Alabasta, it can only be said that the current outfit is beyond words. But for the sake of her serious snow shoveling, Nami generously gave her a dress. The other man, Mr. Nine, who was with him was not so lucky. Still wearing his strange costume, with frozen snot hanging from his nose, he was shivering shoveling the snow on the Mary. Fortunately, his clothes had long sleeves, otherwise it would have been more difficult. The whole way was basically smooth sailing before, and the Mary did not break here and there like the original. So even in such blizzard weather, as long as you pay attention to clearing the snow, there will be basically no major problems. The climate of the Grand Line is ever changing. As long as it is not a fixed winter island or summer island, such weather will soon pass. However, even though the blizzard soon stopped, the snow shovelers were still tired on the deck. The stamina is still not enough. Seeing that even Zoro and Sanji fell to the ground to rest, Luffy muttered to himself. You must know that the duel of the strong will often take days and nights. If you shovel so little snow, you will be tired. It can only be said that the practice is not enough. Seeing that the weather had become sunny again, Luffy took off his padded jacket and hung it on the railing casually. He jumped to his special seat again, sat on the lovely sheep's head on the Mary, and quietly watched the sea after the snow in the first clear. Nami glanced at the sky, then glanced at the recording pointer again, and after seeing that there was no problem, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Although I have learned about the changes of the Grand Line from the book, it is the first time I have faced such a situation. Even if Nami is confident in himself, he still can't avoid nervousness. But fortunately, nothing went wrong, and with the first experience, I won't be as busy as today. Picking up Luffy's padded jacket hanging on the railing, Nami gave Luffy a white glance and walked towards his room. They all live in their own rooms, so they naturally put their clothes in their own rooms. Baroque workers, Crocodile, and Nico Robin, and Neferutari Vivi, what secrets are there in you? Luffy, sitting on the sheep's head, habitually thought about the next plot. Thinking of Vivi, Luffy couldn't help but glance at the woman who was resting on her back, now without any image. Being able to be targeted by there should be some secret. What's the matter? Is there something wrong with that woman? After changing back to Nami, who was dressed in long-sleeved jeans, he came to Luffy again. When I came over, I saw Luffy looking at the woman thoughtfully. For some reason, Nami always had a very uncomfortable feeling. And Miss Wednesday, who was lying down and resting, that is, Princess Vivi of Alabasta, suddenly felt a chill on her back. Neferutari Vivi. Luffy didn't answer Nami right away, but looked back at the unconscious woman and spat out a name. Luffy didn't deliberately lower his voice. There are some things, in front of absolute strength, there is no need to hide. Hearing the name from Luffy's mouth, Vivi, who was lying there with no image, suddenly froze. She continued to lie down without daring to move, as if she wanted to pretend she didn't know anything. And Nami, who had been paying attention to the woman because of Luffy's eyes, immediately noticed the difference. Neferutari? If the surname Nami is correct, it should be the surname of the royal family of the famous desert kingdom, Alabasta. Do you want to continue to pretend? Contrary to your friend who calls himself a prince, as a real princess, there must be a reason for appearing here, right? What? Where is the princess? When Luffy said the word princess, the first person to react was not Nami beside Luffy, nor Vivi, who was the party involved. Instead, it was like Sanji and Mr. Point 9 who had turned on a switch somewhere. It was supposed to be a serious questioning scene, but after these two guys jumped out, Luffy was no longer in the mood to pretend. Miss Wednesday, is what he said true? Are you really a princess? Mr. 9, who has always claimed to be a prince, was inexplicably excited when he heard that his partner might be a real princess. Oh, beautiful princess, I noticed your extraordinariness from the first time we met. Do I have the honor to invite you to lunch? However, compared to Mr. 9, it seems that a certain cook on his own ship is more excited. Luffy has an urge to cover his face. You have surrendered before this hostile relationship has been lifted? Boom. Nami punched him without hesitation. Oh. Is Miss Nami jealous for me? Miss Nami is so beautiful. Vivi, who was still nervous because of her identity being revealed, felt a sense of relief at this time. Just as she was about to speak, the swordsman with 3 knives next to her spoke first. Huh. Can't you tell the difference between an enemy and a friend? You must go up to show your hospitality as long as you are a woman? Zoro didn't forget the last time he was ridiculed by Liu Kai. Now that he has the opportunity, there is no reason to let it go. What are you talking about, green algae head? Are you trying to fight? Sure enough, for Sanji, Zoro is more attractive. Seeing the two scuffled together again, Luffy thought maliciously. Quack. Just when the scene was a little chaotic, a newsbird flew over the Mary. Nami waved at the newsbird, ignoring Zoro and Sanji who were still fighting, and started to bargain with the newsbird seriously. As for, now that I and others are not short of money, it is absolutely impossible to hold the newsbird in order to pay back the few Baileys. Didn't you see that the newsbirds were sweating profusely? In the end, Nami couldn't save a Bailey from the newsbirds. I won't buy it if the price goes up next time. Looking at the newsbird that had already flown far away, Nami shouted towards the sky a little unwillingly. The newsbird heard Nami's cry, its wings visibly twitched, and then flew away faster. Did I say it's necessary? We're not short of money, are we? Don't you know how much you can eat? I'm not here to keep you full, I want to save some elsewhere. Hearing Luffy's muttering, Nami froze and pointed at Luffy and yelled. "Who is this lady doing this for? You're good, but you still think I'm a fan of money, right?" The more he thought about it, the more angry Nami raised the hand holding the newspaper and wanted to throw it at Luffy's head. Just then, a single sheet of paper floated out of the folded newspaper. The paper swayed and floated in front of Vivi, who was still stunned. The floating paper suddenly caught everyone's attention. Nami took back the newspaper that had not been sent out, and even Zoro and Sanji, who were still fighting together, stopped. Seeing everyone turn their attention to the paper in front of him, Vivi was helpless and could only bite the bullet and pick up the piece of paper that fell in front of him under everyone's attention. Luffy, who was about to endure Nami's blow, also looked at him. "If I read it right, that piece of paper should be a reward list, right?" "What?" With the scream of Vivi, who picked up the bounty list and unfolded it, everyone also saw the specific content of the bounty list at the same time. Lulu. Luffy, as usual, Usopp exclaimed as soon as he saw the bounty list. "Oh? Is Luffy on a bounty? Marine is so quick." Zoro kept strangling Sanji's neck, looking at Luffy's avatar on the bounty list, and said, "No, the front foot had just rejected the other party's invitation, and the back foot had already put up a reward. Maybe it won't be long before we will be rewarded too." Sanji looked at Luffy's bounty with envy, but didn't take his hand back from Zoro. 90 million Baileys. After seeing the amount of the reward, Vivi exclaimed again. For her, the highest reward she has ever seen is only 81 million Bailey. And that was the one he wanted to deal with, namely Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Even if the other party's bounty does not increase after becoming 7 warlords of the sea, it also proves that the man in front of him has the strength to become Shichibukai. Thinking of this, Vivi quickly thought about whether he could ask the other party to help solve Crocodile. "Hey, Miss Wednesday, this guy has a bounty of 90 million Bailey, is it really okay for us to bring him to Whiskey Peak?" The first time he saw the amount of the bounty offered by Luffy, Mr. 9 climbed up to Vivi and whispered in her ear. "Nice photo shoot." For his own bounty, Luffy just thinks this photo looks much better than the smiling face in the original book. As for the bounty amount, the higher the better, of course, but the troubles that come with it will also increase. "We have to find devil fruit for Nami and the others as soon as possible. There is really no way, so we can only try our luck with Enel and Golden Lion." A cold light flashed in Luffy's eyes. "Maybe I can try it when I encounter demon fruit power in the future. After all, no matter how small the chance is, there is still a chance of rebirth nearby." With his unusual observation Haki, if devil fruit is reborn nearby, it is not difficult to find. Maybe I can always match some fruits on the boat in the future. By the way, we haven't done anything yet, so why is Luffy being offered a bounty by Marine? Just because he refused their invitation? Nami didn't understand. After all, his adoptive mother was Marine. However, he encountered people like Colonel Mouse and Colonel Monka, which made Nami distrust Marine. If Luffy hadn't brought Garp, the Marine hero, to save him, Nami thinks he might never trust Marine again. Even if Belmere was once a Marine. However, this time the bounty once again made Nami disappointed with Marine. It's not all about Marine. Luffy shook his head. Nami didn't know the relationship between world government and Marine. How could he not know? With Garp's relationship there, Marine shouldn't take the initiative to offer a reward to himself. After all, he had promised Garp, and he had also promised Nami that he would not become a pirate like a dragon. If there is no reason for world government here, Luffy doesn't believe it. Maybe he has already entered the eyes of those 5 at this time. After all, Luffy has never concealed his name. The D family has always been the focus of the world government. Although Luffy still didn't reveal what D was before he crossed over, the world government's attention to D was obvious to all. Not Marine's problem. Nami didn't understand what Luffy meant. Luffy did not explain. After all, it is too complicated to explain, and Luffy himself is not very clear about the specific things. "I don't know the specifics. In short, Marine can't be completely independent. For some things, the world government has the power to make a final decision." Nami nodded knowingly and didn't ask any further questions. "That. Mr. Luffy." Ignoring Mr. 9's incessant gestures next to him, Vivi was silent for a while and decided to gamble on Luffy. Hearing Vivi's voice, everyone turned their attention to her. Not caring about the others, Vivi looked at the man sitting on the bow, and when he saw that he was looking at himself, he spoke again. "As Mr. Luffy said, my real name is indeed Neferutari Vivi. Although I don't know how Luffy knew, but since he decided to ask the other party to take action, some things are better not to ask. It is indeed the Princess of Alabasta, but now Alabasta is in an unprecedented crisis. I'm here and acting in that capacity for that very reason. My country is at war, and I've found out who's behind it all, but I have no way of fighting it, so I'd like to ask Mr. Luffy to help. It's not difficult to deal with sand crocodiles, crocodile. Hearing Luffy say this, Vivi's excitement flashed in his eyes for a moment, but it quickly subsided. Luffy's words were obviously not finished, and Vivi didn't think the other party would help him for no reason. But what can you pay for it? Vivi's request wasn't rejected, but Luffy didn't intend to help in vain either. Moreover, even if he agrees directly, the other party may not trust him. After all, helping others without asking for anything in return is not so easy to believe in this world where pirates are rampant. What if you kill a crocodile and bring in another stronger one? Vivi was obviously relieved to hear that Luffy didn't mean to refuse, but offered to pay. No one is stupid, this approach is beneficial to both parties. As the Princess of Alabasta, I can call the shots and pay you Bailey twice the crocodile bounty. Crocodile's bounty when he becomes Shichibukai is 81 million Baileys, doubling it is 162 million. 162 million? But can you really give out so much Bailey? The current Luffy is not yet familiar with Vivi, and the content of the transaction to be discussed still needs to be discussed. Nami on the side was also a little bit interested in Luffy wanting to accept Vivi's request. But when I heard Luffy say 162 million, I instantly put that dissatisfaction behind me. Alabasta isn't really rich right now, but Bailey has it all. Vivi replied affirmatively. If with Alabasta's national strength, even Bailey, who is less than 200 million, can't get it, then Vivi doesn't have to run around for this country. Just let Crocodile take the country away. Okay, we agreed. Before Luffy could say anything, Nami had already made a decision for Luffy. But looking at the appearance of Bailey's eyes, I didn't think about what kind of strength Crocodile really is. However, after seeing Luffy's fight with Hawkeye, Nami felt that the so-called sand crocodile could not be Luffy's opponent. This is why Nami agreed to Vivi without hesitation. Otherwise, based on Nami's concern for Luffy, if the sand crocodile is really strong to the level of Hawkeye, then Nami will not agree anyway. But Luffy didn't care much, and Nami agreed. Even without Vivi's request, he and others should have encountered Crocodile. At that time, Luffy naturally wouldn't let Crocodile go easily. After all, sand fruit is a pretty good ability. But yes, but the Mary will go to two places before heading to Alabasta. This, although he really wanted to go back to Alabasta immediately, but after all, the initiative was in the hands of the other party, Vivi could only nod helplessly. In any case, as long as the other party agrees, then there is hope for him to drive out Crocodile. Regardless of whether the opponent is really capable of killing Crocodile, there is nothing wrong with Marine's bounty. At least the opponent should have the strength to touch Crocodile. Miss Wednesday, are you really going to betray the Baroque Work Society? Mr. 9, who has been silent since just now, looked at Vivi and asked seriously. Yes, I joined the Baroque studio to investigate Crocodile from the very beginning. Now that the evidence is in hand, and with Mr. Luffy's help, I have no reason to continue working for him. Now that Luffy's affirmative answer has been obtained, Vivi did not hesitate to answer Mr. 9's words directly. Then what about you? After knowing my identity, are you going to go back and report it to the Baroque Works? If the other party really wants to do this, then Vivi will not hesitate to ask Luffy to kill him. Although they have been together for a long time, compared with Alabasta, the status of the other party is not as high as that. Since you, as a real princess, are leaving the Baroque workplace, then as a prince, I will naturally follow to the end. Mr. 9 is quite obsessed with this set of princes and princesses. Even at the risk of being killed, he must follow Vivi. It can only be said that if he is longer and more decent and stronger, it will be even better. Vivi did not comment on his choice, and some things still need to be experienced to understand. Ah? You shouldn't really be a prince from somewhere, right? Usopp on the side heard Mr. 9 say that he was a prince again, thinking that the other party was really the prince of a certain kingdom. Just him. Impossible, he must have said that because he wanted to approach Princess Vivi as a prince, scumbag. As for Sanji, whose IQ is basically equal to 0, seeing Mr. 9 towards Vivi like this, he felt that he was courting, and immediately sneered. Hey, you guy, don't underestimate me. Mr. 9, who was mocked by Sanji, immediately yelled at Sanji. In this case, after reaching Whiskey Peak, let the bounty hunters there settle down, and we can leave early to save time. Now that it has been agreed, some things can be said on the bright side. Hearing Luffy's warning, both Vivi and Mr. Point 9 looked at him in shock. The other party seems to know a lot of things, some things that only he knows, but he can directly expose them. Does he have any ability to eavesdrop on other people's thoughts? Vivi is a little fortunate that she chose to confess to the other party after her identity was revealed. Otherwise, even if you reach Whiskey Peak, you may be killed by the other party, and even all the bounty hunters in Whiskey Peak will be killed. Vivi, who has seen the strength of Crocodile, doesn't think that those 3 religions and 9 first-rate people can stop Luffy. I just said that your codenames sounded familiar before, but now I hear Luffy mention the bounty hunter, and I remembered that the Baroque workers also contacted me. Zoro on the side immediately remembered something about the Baroque workplace after hearing Luffy talk about the bounty hunter. But it doesn't make much sense. Vivi has all explained it, and Zoro's news is not bad. You green algae head is really useless, just talk nonsense. Sanji seized the opportunity to fight hard, and then the two pinched together again. Luffy ignored Zoro and Sanji, who were fighting. Whiskey Peak is followed by Little Garden, and then the Drum Kingdom. Don't let me down, Chopper. I have Crocus medical notes ready for you. Even if there is the professor of Dr. Dolly this note must be helpful to you, right? Miss Nami, Miss Vivi, dessert is ready. Please enjoy it slowly. On the deck of the Mary, Sanji served 2 desserts. But the object is still only 2 women. Hey, cook, don't you have my portion of dessert? Mr. 9, who had no self-consciousness, saw that Sanji only served dessert to 2 women, and shouted to Sanji. As if he was really a prince, waiting for the squire to serve him dessert. This is a healthy dessert that I specially made for the 2 young ladies. Of course, it is not for a stinky man like you. But he's already eating. Mr. 9 didn't express any dissatisfaction with Sanji's sexism, just pointed at Luffy who was being fed by Nami. Damn it, Luffy, you bastard. That's what I specially prepared for Miss Nami. Looking in the direction Mr. Point 9 pointed, Sanji saw Luffy bite on the spoon Nami handed over. Sanji, who was in a good mood to ridicule Mr. Point 9 at first, became jealous for a while, only to feel that his heart was full of jealousy. Che. What are you yelling about, the curly-haired cook? Hearing Sanji's shout, Zoro cast his gaze decisively and sneered mercilessly. So Luffy didn't speak, and Sanji was attracted by Zoro. Watching Zoro and Sanji scuffle together again, Luffy once again sighed that the two were natural enemies. Mr. Luffy and Miss Nami have such a good relationship. Standing at the bow of the boat, Vivi saw Nami feeding Luffy dessert, and Luffy said with some envy, without the slightest twist. Luffy and Nami didn't speak, just quietly savored Sanji's dessert. At this time, Vivi had loosened the single ponytail that was originally tied, and the bangs on the forehead were put down again. His clothes were also changed into the long-sleeved hot pants that Nami provided him. Compared with the strange clothes that I just saw at the beginning, it gives people a completely new feeling. And after the sky blue hair was loose, it was more amazing than before. The desserts made by Sanji-kun are delicious. Without waiting for a response from the two, Vivi could only taste the dessert that Sanji had handed before. Just one sip made Vivi a little like the taste. Yeah, if nothing else, Sanji's cooking skills are still very good, at least I have never eaten anything better than his cooking. Neither Luffy nor Nami can fault Sanji's cooking. Still sitting on the sheep's head, Luffy ate the dessert fed by Nami, looking at the calm sea in the distance. It didn't take long for a cactus to appear in Luffy's field of vision, and Whiskey Peak arrived. Since Vivi had already notified Ikolem, who was undercover with her, naturally there would be no more so-called towns that welcome pirates. The Mary sailed into the port smoothly. Although there were no townspeople pretending to be bounty hunters to welcome her, there was still one person and one duck waiting at the port. Looking at the curled hair and the figure with a fat body, Vivi jumped off the Mary first. Quickly walking to Ikolem's side, Vivi touched the large duck next to him, and then introduced the Luffy people who got off the boat to the fat uncle. Luffy Lord, thank you very much for accepting Princess Vivi's request. The figure wearing the straw hat was recognized at a glance. After all, the bounty list with this face printed on it has spread all over the world in the past 2 days. I don't need to thank you. I didn't help you for free. The reward that Miss Vivi promised, I hope I don't miss the appointment afterwards. Naturally, please rest assured, Lord Luffy. Without haggling or hesitating, Luffy was able to agree to deal with Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, for 162 million, and it was his own advantage. If you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do. Hey, What happened after waiting? You are finally here. The rookie pirate with a reward of 90 million. I don't know if it really has this strength. Just when Ecolem wanted to bring Luffy and the others to town, a discordant male voice came from behind the stone next to him. And you, Mr. 8, Mr. 9, and Miss Wednesday, since you have made the decision to betray the Baroque Work Club, you must be ready to be cleared by Mr. Zero? Another female voice also sounded from the same direction. You are Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine. Looking at a man and a woman walking out from behind the stone, Vivi and Ecolem recognized them at a glance. Zoro, Sanji, let's solve it. If you don't fight, your skills will regress. Compared to Vivi and the others, Luffy and the others have no feeling at all about the new two. You are. What are you? Well, except Usopp. Zoro and Sanji naturally had no objection to Luffy's proposal, but walked towards the man and woman one by one. Hey, chef, don't you think that the other party is a woman and can't do it? Otherwise, you can go back, and there is no problem with giving both of them to me. Well, the fight hasn't started yet, and it is estimated that the fight will start on my own side. Sure enough, Sanji couldn't take it anymore after hearing Zoro's words. Be gentle with ladies, you green algae head won't understand. Huh? Don't put your self-righteous thoughts on others, bastard with curly eyebrows. So, before they fought with the enemy, the two of them started their own hands. Are you guys underestimating me? Look at my booger bomb. The noodle-haired man in a brown jacket and sunglasses felt insulted to see Zoro and Sanji completely ignoring him. Immediately stretched out his hand, dug out a piece of booger in the disgusting eyes of everyone present, then threw it in his hand and slammed it towards Zoro and Sanji who were in the fight. And the two people in the fight, when the booger was about to talk to the two, suddenly separated. Afterwards, Zoro slashed with a knife, directly seeing the booger in two and flying towards both sides. Boom, boom, with two roars, the booger that flew to both sides suddenly exploded, and bursts of dust were thrown from the fire. Originally, Zoro, who was shattering his thoughts because the knife slashed his booger, finally showed a little serious expression when he saw that the booger he had cut still exploded. At the same time, Sanji, who flashed to the side, also took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit one, put it in his mouth and started smoking. Demon fruit power? I didn't expect to meet the rare demon fruit power in East Blue as soon as I entered the Grand Line. It's a bit of a skill to escape my booger bomb, but it won't be so easy next. The man in sunglasses said to Zoro and the two, and then looked at the woman with an umbrella and a strange construction hat next to him. Give me the one with the knife, and you will deal with the one with the curly eyebrows, okay, Miss Valentine? Okay, but you don't want to be hacked to death by others. The woman called Miss Valentine replied with a malicious smile. You should worry about yourself. After all, you are the accomplice of the pirate who offered a reward of 90 million Bailey, but don't be killed by the other party. The man in sunglasses sarcastically said, and then saw him take a revolver-like pistol from his waist. In this world of pirates with flintlock guns, it is really surprising to suddenly pull out a revolver. Want to shoot me with a gun? Zoro has already taken out 3 knives, and the one in his mouth is still the word hedao. The other 2 I have in my hands are the new knives I got in Logue Town. But don't get killed by accident, Mr. 5 answered, and then saw him take a deep breath and blow hard at the revolver's revolver. Spin the wheel once, and then see that Mr. .5 is a shot directly at Zoro. Boom, invisible air exploded where Zoro was standing. Although there was no physical bullet trajectory, Zoro jumped away with his fighting instinct. But although it jumped off, the aftermath of the explosion still blew Zoro into a mess. Although it didn't hurt much, Zoro was upset for a while, especially. Hey, green algae head, why did you get blown up like this from the beginning? Just go back to Luffy's side, and leave these 2 to me. Seeing this scene, Sanji, who hasn't fought yet, will naturally not miss the opportunity to mock Zoro. You still have the mind to take care of others. Die for me. Just as Sanji looked towards Zoro, Miss Valentine's voice suddenly sounded from the air. Then, just when Sanji turned his head, the slightly petite body suddenly fell, and the right foot aimed at the top of Sanji's head and kicked at high speed. Looking at the apparently abnormal falling speed of the opponent, Sanji did not choose to make a hard connection, but quickly jumped to the side. Boom. There was another explosion. This time it was not the sound of a bomb exploding, but the dull sound of a heavy object falling from a height and slamming to the ground. Looking at the place where he was standing, a huge pothole was smashed, and even the nearby ground was slightly cracked. Sanji is somewhat grateful for his choice to avoid. Are you also demon fruit power? Sanji, who regained his footing, looked at Miss Valentine, his eyes a little dignified. After all, this is the first time against demon fruit power, so be careful. It seems that I saw that smoker was easily solved by Luffy before, which made my judgment of devil fruit a little wrong. Is it still Luffy too strong? But yes, after all, Luffy is also demon fruit power. That's right, I eat light lion fruit, and I can change my weight at will between 1 to 10,000 kilograms. Without caring, he explained his fruit power to Sanji, and Miss Valentine flew into the sky again. Seeing Miss Valentine falling from the sky to him again, Sanji smiled. Perhaps the force of your fall from the air is indeed strong, but... Boom, too slow. Sanji, who had dodged the crash again, before Miss Valentine could get up, she pressed her feet and quickly appeared beside her. With Miss Valentine's eyes widening, he kicked out with his right foot. Huh. Is it over there? But this lascivious cook can't change his lecherous problems. Zoro, who was dodging from the left and right of the Mr. .5 airbomb, caught a glimpse of Sanji, who had his feet next to the stunned Miss Valentine's neck out of the corner of his eye, and sneered softly. Then, Zoro stopped the movement of his feet, and his body suddenly stopped. Are you finally going to give up? Seeing Zoro stop, Mr. 5 also stopped shooting. In his opinion, Zoro is already meat on the chopping block, and Sen has slaughtered it himself. Give up? It's not just about trying your new trick. Saying that, Zoro took the third-generation Onikiru and Yukaku back to their scabbards, and at the same time took off the words Waduchi in their mouths. Holding Hedaoi in his left hand, he bent and raised it slightly, his right hand held the back of his left hand, and Zoro squatted down slightly. I just realized this trick not long ago, so let you try it first. Seeing Zoro swinging his knife, Mr. 5, who was far away from himself, didn't care, he just raised his revolver and aimed it at Zoro. On the contrary, Luffy, who was actually fighting, smiled slightly when he saw Zoro's posture. It seems that it is still effective to mention cutting iron to Zoro in advance. Boom, one blade stream, 36 troubled winds. When Mr. .5 fired, Zoro waved the word Waduchi in his hand at the same time. A blue whirling slash wave was swiped from the tip of the Kudoichi character. The slash wave pierced the air, directly dispersing the air bomb that was shot at Zoro, and then flew towards Mr. .5, who was still in the shooting position. The flying slashes hit Mr. .5, who was standing there without incident. In Mr. 5's stunned eyes, he directly knocked him out. Hey, Chlorella, you're moving too slowly, why did you solve it now? Putting down her right leg, Miss Valentine, who had been stunned, had no intention of resisting. Sanji took a puff on the unfinished cigarette and said to Zoro. Che, sooner or later you will die at the hands of a woman. Zoro just couldn't get used to Sanji's stinking habit of not hitting women. The enemy is the enemy. What is the difference between men and women? Is it really not dead or what? Okay. It's amazing. It turns out that in addition to Mr. Luffy, Mr. Swordsman and Mr. Chef are also so amazing. Looking at Mr. .5, who had been dealt with, and Miss Valentine, who was stunned in place, Vivi covered her mouth in amazement. And Ikalem, who was beside him, was speechless in shock. The agents of the Baroque Agency are ranked in order of numbers. The smaller the number, the stronger the agent. However, Mr. 5 and her partner, who were 3 levels higher than him, were easily dealt with by these two. Ikalem is more confident that Luffy and others can tackle Crocodile. Now that it's resolved, what about that woman? Zoro, who returned to Luffy's side, looked at Miss Valentine, who was stunned by Sanji. He didn't expect the quality of being a killer to be so low. The lustful cook is in trouble. If you knock her down, nothing will happen. Tie her up first, otherwise, if she runs away, there may be trouble. Luffy didn't comment on Sanji's actions, just spoke to Usopp next to him. After all, Usopp has everything, and there must be no shortage of ropes. Ah. Oh. Usopp, who was called by Luffy, responded, and immediately ran to Miss Valentine, who was sitting on the ground, and tied her up without the other party resisting. It takes a day to record the pointer magnetically, so let's fix it here today. Although this is also a subordinate bounty hunter agency of the Baroque Work Society. But at present, apart from the top secret agents, only Mr. 9, who followed Luffy and the others, knew Vivi's identity. So with Mr. .8 like Ikalem, Luffy and the others naturally don't need to waste their energy to kill these bounty hunters. As for Miss Valentine, who was tied up, he was still tied to the stone over there and basked in the sun. Don't worry about her escaping, her light lion fruit can only act on herself, and can't fly when tied. But Luffy is a little strange. She herself said that the light lion fruit can make her weight freely change between 1 to 10,000 kilograms. Even in the lightest state, it should be 1 kilogram. How did she fly? Devil fruit is really strange. Maybe she doesn't fully understand her own fruit ability. A few people rested in the town for a night, during which Ikarim entertained Luffy and others. Although there was not much food left in the town, he left immediately, so he naturally ignored it. As for the other bounty hunters, they were not a group. And because of Vivi's reasons, Luffy and the others had already saved their lives by not taking action against them, so naturally there was no need to feel any burden. The next day, Luffy and others boarded the Mary again, ready to go to the next stop, Little Garden. When he left, Mr. Nine naturally wouldn't follow him, and even if he wanted to, Luffy wouldn't let him stay on the Mary. And Ikalem, under the persuasion of Vivi, took the lead to go back to Alabasta. Since Luffy has been invited as a savior, it is natural that someone needs to go back and tell the purpose of Crocodile to Vivi's father, the current king of Alabasta, Cobra. Moreover, when someone goes back, they can also make some arrangements in advance, so as not to cause too many losses in time. Originally, Ikalem planned to let Vivi go back and report the situation to the king. And he followed Luffy and others, and when they were done, he would lead the way to Alabasta. But thinking that it would be dangerous to let Vivi set out alone, it is better to let her follow Luffy and them. Although there may be other dangers on the road, with Luffy's strength, they can fully protect Vivi's safety. Furthermore, the condition was agreed by Vivi. It was completely unreasonable to exchange with Vivi, and Luffy and the others would not necessarily believe in themselves. So in the end Vivi followed Luffy and the others, but before leaving, Ikalem gave Nami a permanent pointer to Alabasta. As for himself, he had to find another way. But why are we bringing this guy? On the Mary, looking at Miss Valentine who was brought aboard, Nami looked at Luffy dangerously. You just got yourself, and are you ready to take action against other women? Although neither Ikalem nor Mr. Point 9 followed the Mary, Luffy took the Miss Valentine who had been stunned by Sanji before. What does Mr. Luffy need this woman to do? Although Vivi felt that Luffy didn't bring her up because he fell in love with the other party, he really couldn't think of any other possibility. Maybe this woman could be used in Alabasta. As for whether there will be any damage on the ship, leave it to our merciful chef, Mr. Cook. Slightly staggered Nami's line of sight, although this Miss Valentine looks good, but Luffy didn't fall in love with her at a glance. That's not the way to keep tying her like this, right? Taking Luffy's word for the moment, Nami wouldn't be surprised that Luffy always knew something. As for whether this woman is really used in Alabasta as Luffy said, that will be discussed later. If he dared to lie to himself, Nami wouldn't let Luffy in his bed. Hearing Nami's words, Luffy looked towards Miss Valentine who was bound. Our cooks may be merciful to women, but if you do something that harms the ship, I'll just throw you into the sea, understand? Frightened by Luffy's eyes, Miss Valentine nodded hurriedly. That green-headed man with curly eyebrows and 3 knives without a reward can easily defeat himself and Mr. 5. Miss Valentine doesn't think she can escape from this big pirate with a bounty of 90 million. The other party didn't mean to kill him before, so it's better to be honest, maybe he can leave alive. Name. Miss Valentine was always calling, and Luffy found it annoying. Makita. Miss Valentine didn't hesitate, and immediately said her name. Usopp, untie. Although there is no guarantee that the other party will not make small moves, but with Sanji watching, there will be no major problems. No matter how bad it is, his own observation haki is not for watching. Just monitoring someone, Luffy's observation haki consumption is not too much. Hey, is it really okay to just untie her like this? Nami was still a little worried. Don't worry, as long as you're still on this ship, no one can hide from my observation haki. Luffy patted Nami on the shoulder, then continued looking in a certain direction. Are you right? Miss Nicole Robin. Someone else got on the Mary. Where is it? Luffy's words were out of his mouth, and Zoro immediately put his hand on the hilt at his waist. Sanji also stood in front of Vivi for the first time. Usopp, on the other hand, looked around nervously, not knowing where the person Luffy was talking about was. Monkey D. Luffy, I'm so curious how you know me. In everyone's eyes, behind the deck on the second floor of the Mary, a woman in a denim leather jacket walked out from there. You're Miss All Sunday. The first time she saw the woman, Vivi recognized who she was. But obviously, Vivi only knew the identity of the other party's Baroque work club, but not her other identity. Miss All Sunday? Also an agent of the Baroque works? Hearing Vivi's shout, everyone's first reaction was that the other party was also a Baroque worker. Ignoring the others, the woman stared solemnly at the man who directly called out her real name. Nicole Robin, who wanted to make fun of the other party, was shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. In his profile, the other party is obviously just a newbie pirate who has just entered the Grand Line. Why can he recognize him at a glance? You must know that on the reward order, your portrait is still at the stage of a child. Miss All Sunday, are you Mr. Zero sent to deal with us? Vivi, who is quite familiar with the behavior of the Baroque work club, immediately thought that the other party was here to kill him. I have no orders to deal with you. Although it was surprising that Luffy revealed his name, it was obvious that he did not reveal himself by looking at the appearance of others. He was slightly relieved, but Nicole Robin didn't dare to be careless. In any case, if the other party really wanted to keep him, he might not be able to escape at all. At this moment, Nicole Robin regretted why she had come to check on this ship. If he hadn't been so curious, he might not have fallen into the current predicament. But even so, Nicole Robin didn't show any fear on her face. She still answered Vivi's question with a smile. After so many years, if you can't even manage your own expression well, then maybe you have died a long time ago. Hearing Nicole Robin's answer, Vivi didn't let down her guard. This woman, it's not easy. Don't be so nervous. You must know that the results of your investigation were obtained by me deliberately letting you follow. If I want to deal with you, why wait until now? Although he was provoking Vivi, his eyes never left Luffy. Of course I know that. Vivi is not stupid, on the contrary, she was able to go undercover for 2 years in the Baroque work club, thanks to her own agility. Stop talking nonsense, Nicole Robin. I don't care what you're on this ship for, but right now, I have something I want to ask you. Luffy looked serious, and the others on the boat didn't say anything when they saw Luffy talking, but looked at Luffy with curious eyes. They actually heard Luffy call the woman Nicole Robin this time, which meant Luffy knew who the woman was. But looking at the woman's expression, it was obviously the first time she had seen Luffy. After hearing Luffy's words, Nicole Robin was stunned for a moment, but then looked at Luffy vigilantly. As long as Luffy made a move, she would jump on the turtle ship following the Mary without hesitation. What do you wish to ask? With her eyes fixed on Luffy, Nicole Robin didn't dare to be careless. Don't be so nervous, I'm not trying to hurt you or ask embarrassing questions. Not slackening by Luffy's words, Nicole Robin just watched Luffy silently, waiting for his next words. My ship is short of people now, how about you? Do you want to come to my ship? What are you talking about? Mr. Luffy. As soon as Luffy finished speaking, Nami and the others who reacted first, especially Vivi, reacted the most. Nicole Robin also apparently didn't expect Luffy to invite herself aboard. She didn't respond for a while, she just blinked and didn't make a sound. The goal of my trip is Crocodile. After the fall of the Baroque society, you are going to run away anyway, why don't you come to my ship? Luffy ignored everyone's surprise and confusion, and Yi still looked at each other calmly. Hey, Luffy, what are you doing? You just brought a Miss Valentine, you said she was useful, and now you're inviting this woman of unknown origin, don't you really like them? Luffy ignored Nami and the others, which didn't mean that Nami didn't speak. As soon as she reacted, she touched Luffy's cheek. Don't make trouble, she's different from Makita. Nicole Robin's presence is necessary if we want to navigate the world. Luffy held Nami's hand but wanted to pull his cheek, but he didn't mean to let go, so he held Nami's hand and explained. Since Mr. Luffy knows me, he should know about my past. Even so, would you still invite someone like me on board? Although she didn't know Luffy's specific purpose, Nicole Robin wasn't so nervous at this point. As long as the other party thinks that he is useful, he will not move him easily. This is Nicole Robin's experience of struggling alone for so many years. And when others don't need me, I have already made all the arrangements so that I can get away easily. What? Luffy, can you say hello before you invite people next time? It's a sudden invitation every time. If you don't say whether people will agree or not, we'll find it very awkward. Zoro still believes in Luffy's way of looking at people. But I always feel that Luffy seems to have known these people for a long time, and his every action seems to be specially designed to invite himself and others. Looking carefully, isn't this a beautiful lady? Luffy, you finally did something worthy of praise. A question mark slowly appeared on Luffy's head, and Zoro said it was fine. Sanji, do you think I didn't do anything right before? Luffy, you don't really. really want to invite this woman, are you? For anyone and anything, Usopp is inherently timid. I know you've been looking for historical texts, and it just so happens that I have several pieces of historical texts on my side. How about that? Luffy felt like a human trafficker now, and he was destined to rely on these sidelines to invite people. Even the historical text, I'm even more curious about Mr. Luffy now. On the surface, it was still calm, but when Nicole Robin heard Luffy mention the historical text, the vigilance she had just dropped rose again. I sincerely invite you to board the ship, or do you need to think about it? Of course, you have to think about it. You are such a direct invitation that no one dares to accept it directly, right? Nicole Robin secretly complained, but she didn't mean to refuse directly. After all, Luffy was right, if he did beat Crocodile, he should have run away too. But what if you can't beat it? If he promised to get on his boat now, wouldn't he be finished by then? Are you worried we can't beat Crocodile? As if seeing through Nicole Robin's heart, Luffy directly expressed her concerns. Nicole Robin was taken aback, although she did think so, but she didn't show the slightest expression of wanting to agree. Can you see your hesitation? Why don't you do it like this? After I and Crocodile officially fight, if I win, how about you agree to my invitation? As for losing, there is no need to hesitate when everyone is dead, Nicole Robin thought. At the same time he said, since Mr. Luffy has said this for the sake of it, if I refuse again, I will be a little confused. Then I will wait for the good news from Mr. Luffy. After agreeing to Luffy's offer, Nicole Robin left in her turtle boat. So, can you tell us now why you invited the woman from the Baroque Work Club? After Nicole Robin left, Nami grabbed Luffy and asked. Zoro and the others also looked at Luffy at the same time. Although they believed in Luffy's selection, they still wanted to know why Luffy did this. She is the last surviving scholar of Ohara, and she should be the only person who can interpret the text of history in this sea at present. Luffy had no plans to hide the curiosity of the crowd, but he didn't need to explain everything to them. Ohara? You mean the Ohara that has been destroyed? As the princess of a country, or a big country like Alabasta, Vivi's knowledge is naturally not comparable to ordinary people. Even Nami has seen Ohara's messages in books. Yes, Ohara, the island that was wiped out by Marine Buster Call, and she, Nicole Robin, is now the only Ohara scholar left in this world. But, what does this have to do with you inviting her? Wait, you've been talking about the historical text since just now. What exactly is the historical text? Nami finally got the point of Luffy's words. This year is the 1520th year of the Sea Circle calendar, and 22 years have passed since the era of the Great Pirates. Why is it that no one can find the treasure left by One Piece after so many years? This is actually not quite right. The treasure was not left by Roger, but for Nami and the others, it does not need to be explained so clearly. Sure enough, after hearing Luffy's words, everyone showed a thoughtful expression. If there is no special reason, why has the era of the Great Pirates passed for so long, but no second One Piece was born? And thinking of the historical text mentioned by Luffy, combined with Luffy's behavior of inviting Nicole Robin, Nami seems to understand. You mean to find the final island that One Piece once visited, you need someone who can understand the historical text to guide you. Luffy didn't answer, because Luffy wasn't sure if he wanted to interpret what's in the historical text. Or only need to find the 4 historical text of road signs to determine the direction of the final island. But how do you know this? Obviously not everyone can know these things, right? Nami was keenly aware of the doubts in Luffy's words. If someone really knew this information, the big secret treasure should have been taken away long ago. But if no one knows, how did Luffy find out? Nami looked at Luffy with burning eyes, thinking that he was slowly approaching Luffy. But it wasn't until today that Nami realized that Luffy still seemed to be out of his reach. Zoro and others were also curious about the question raised by Nami. Even Princess Vivi, who had just met, was looking at Luffy eagerly at this time. After all, Luffy recognized his identity from the moment he saw him, and it was unbelievable how to think about such a thing. Take it as my secret. For everyone's curiosity, Luffy has no intention of explaining. Although I don't mind telling this information, I can't tell them that I have passed through, right? Nami gave Luffy a deep look and said nothing. Zoro also lay down directly, resting against the main mast. And Sanji and Zoro also walked towards the kitchen and warehouse respectively. Since Luffy has said so, they naturally won't ask any more. Just as Luffy never asked about their past, they naturally wouldn't bother about what Luffy didn't want to say. Vivi, who originally thought he could know some of Luffy's secrets, had to let go of his curiosity after seeing Nami and the others tacitly didn't ask. As for Makita, she was still on her own boat for the time being, and she heard these messages when she heard them. As for the future, Luffy didn't plan to give her too many choices. Okay. Let's not talk about things that far away, there is something I want to tell you right now. Sanji and Usopp, who were about to leave, stopped, and everyone looked at them again. Our next destination is a prehistoric island, a giant island known as Little Garden. Going to Little Garden was Luffy's plan before he entered the Grand Line. In addition to the fact that it is an island in the plot, another reason Luffy wants to be here is the two giants that live on this island. It wasn't that Luffy wanted to invite these two giants on board. After all, it was unrealistic. Even if the other party could agree, the Mary would not be able to carry them. Rather, Luffy wanted to see if he could learn the Elbaf's spear, the strongest spear of the giants, from their hands. After all, Aunts can learn it, so why can't you learn this trick if you have the skill of third gear and can imitate yourself as a giant? And if you learn this trick, then you will have an extra killing trick in the true sense. You mean prehistoric island? Hearing Luffy's words, Vivi was the first to react. What's the matter, Vivi? Is there something wrong? For Vivi's sudden and violent reaction, the people born in East Blue obviously did not understand the meaning of prehistoric island. Yes, prehistoric island, but the creatures on the island don't need to worry, but there is one thing you must pay attention to. Luffy's expression is serious. Don't think that only Nami is sick in the original book, but that's because it was Nami who was bitten by Casquia. Luffy isn't sure if the virus has affected other people, but it probably does. So, before entering Little Garden, you have to remind them to pay attention. Don't worry about the creatures on the island. If it is really prehistoric island, there must be dinosaurs on that island, right? Don't worry about that. Despite seeing Zoro and Sanji make shots, Vivi still doesn't think they can beat dinosaurs. In Vivi's understanding, dinosaurs are huge and ferocious creatures. Although there are herbivorous dinosaurs, it does not mean that they are not a threat. Dinosaurs really have nothing to worry about. Even if a dinosaur attacks you, Zoro and Sanji are sure to protect you before you are attacked. Yes, Princess Vivi, I will protect you. Sanji, who had a serious face at first, immediately twisted up and ran in front of Vivi after hearing Luffy's words. But Vivi was still a little worried, and he couldn't be too careful until he saw a real dinosaur. The most terrifying thing about prehistoric island is not this kind of dinosaur that can be seen, but the kind of virus that is hard to see with the naked eye, but extremely deadly. I have a reason to go to the island, and you, if you want to go to the island, you must do a good job in protection. Although my next stop is the Magnetic Drum Kingdom, a big medical country, you don't want to experience the feeling that life is worse than death, right? 2 days later, the Mary finally arrived at Little Garden. Little Garden is here, does anyone want to get off the boat with me? The Mary was moored on the shore, and Luffy jumped to land first. Instead of immediately looking for the two giants on the island, Luffy first asked the others on the Mary. Then I'll go with Mr. Luffy. If you stay on the boat, you will think about Alabasta's situation from time to time, so you should go out to relax. Vivi, who put on long-sleeved trousers, also jumped off the Mary. Just when Usopp wanted to jump down, a blood-stained tiger ran out of the jungle not far away. However, before the tiger could run far, it fell to the ground. Seeing such a scene, Usopp's foot that he had stepped out instantly retracted, and at the same time he began to tremble continuously. I suddenly got a disease that I can't land on the island, so I won't go. Gah. At the same time, Karoo, who was about to follow him, backed away in horror. But Vivi obviously didn't intend to let it go, ignoring his mount's begging eyes, and said directly to Karoo. Kaloo, you come with me too, quack quack. Karoo took a few steps back with a reluctant look in his eyes, but unable to resist the insistence of his master, he could only jump off the Mary with a face full of death. Luffy wondered why this duck had such a rich expression. Then I'll go shopping myself, I haven't cut down dinosaurs before. Ignoring the attributes of his own Luna, Zoro jumped out of the boat directly. Hey, Zoro, bring back some food if you meet me. Sanji, who had no plans to disembark, said to Zoro. Okay, I'll bring back some ingredients that no one has ever beaten. Zoro agreed directly, but what he said aroused a certain cook who was not planning to get off the boat. Hey, I can't pretend I didn't hear what you said. What? Why don't we try it out and decide who gets the bigger food? Okay, no problem. So, the two took the lead to leave the vicinity of the Mary and walk towards the depths of the jungle. I'll follow along, anyway, with you here, don't worry about safety. Nami also jumped off the boat, wearing long-sleeved jeans as usual. In this way, only Usopp and the captured Makita were left on board. Hey, I'm the only one left with you all gone. What if the woman sabotages or runs away? Usopp obviously didn't expect that besides himself, there was only one enemy left on the boat with him. Hey, don't talk nonsense with your long nose. Hearing Usopp's words, Makita immediately shouted. For Luffy and the others, Makita was still quite scared. Even if he was unbound now, he didn't dare to make the slightest move, for fear that Luffy would kill himself directly. And the food on the ship is really delicious. If not still afraid of Luffy and others, Makita has an urge to stay on this ship. Now that Usopp is so doubtful, it is natural to quickly come out and clarify. Luffy just glanced at Makita, and she shrank her neck and didn't dare to look at Luffy. Don't worry, she won't do anything. Even if you want to do something, you will immediately notice that at your own speed, it doesn't take much time to get back. On the island, Luffy intends to drive observation Haki all the way. One is to find the location of giants, and the other is to prevent viruses and bugs. Moreover, because of the existence of two giants, this island has not been explored for more than 100 years, right? Maybe you can try your luck. So, with Usopp nervous and Makita heaving a sigh of relief, Luffy took Nami and Vivi, and Vivi's Karoo and started walking towards the jungle. Ow! Before walking far, the three of Luffy saw a dinosaur with an unknown breed. Is this a dinosaur? It's spectacular. I've only seen it in books before. Because of Luffy's presence, Nami not only didn't feel the slightest fear, but looked at the dinosaurs with interest. Seeing Nami like this, Vivi also let go of his nervousness. It's a rare opportunity, let's put aside the troubles for a while and relax. However, although the two women were no longer afraid, Karoo, who followed behind, was still afraid and followed the three of them. It may be the natural bloodline suppression that makes it not dare to take the slightest extreme action, for fear of attracting the peeping of these huge creatures. But it's a little hot, is it because of the volcano in the middle? Before they got far, Nami and Vivi had sweat on their foreheads. However, because of Luffy's previous warning, the two did not dare to swing their clothes at will. Just as the three of Luffy continued to walk, a huge shadow suddenly completely covered Luffy and the others. Nami and Vivi looked up and looked at the huge creature that appeared in front of them with horror in their eyes. Giant. Giant. Looking at the huge figure in front of him with a sword in one hand, a shield in the other, and wearing simple armor, Nami and Vivi suddenly exclaimed. Then, in the terrified eyes of the two, the giant sword in the giant's hand was raised high and slammed down. Luffy didn't make any movement. Under the perception of observation Haki, he could clearly perceive that the giant's sword was not slashing towards the three of them. Amid the screams of Nami and Vivi, the giant's sword swiftly decapitated a dinosaur. As the blood gushed, the body of the unknown dinosaur fell to the ground, crushing a large piece of trees and raising the ground full of stone chips. It seems that the voices of Nami and Vivi caught the attention of the giant, who, after taking out the dinosaur, turned his attention to the three of Luffy who were not far from his feet. Oh? It's actually a human? It's been a long time since a human has come here. The sound like a bell sounded, and the giant squatted down slightly, as if he wanted to see the three of Luffy more clearly. Blue Ogre Dory. Looking at the huge head in front of him, Luffy called out his name directly. Oh? After all these years, it's amazing to hear this name from someone other than Brogy. Dory froze for a moment after hearing Luffy call his name, but didn't pay much attention. Boom. Just when Luffy was about to say his intentions, there was a sudden loud noise from the volcano in the middle that had been calm. Then, sky-high flames erupted from the crater. What? This sudden volcanic eruption made Nami and Vivi, who were still in shock at seeing the giant, screamed again. Then, two slender bodies suddenly plunged into Luffy's arms. Even with observation Haki on, Luffy was taken aback by the two's surprise attack. Leaving from Luffy's arms, Vivi's face was hot under Nami's weird gaze, and he lowered his head for a while, not daring to look at the two of them. Nami quietly put his hand around Luffy's waist and twisted it hard without Vivi looking down. Feeling the movement of the slender hands around his waist, the corners of Luffy's mouth twitched slightly. Although it didn't hurt, Luffy always felt that it wasn't a good head. Grabbing Nami's hand that still wanted to continue, ignoring Nami's staring eyes, Luffy just pulled Nami and walked in the direction the giant left. Vivi behind him glanced at the hands that the two held together, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. Suppressing the strangeness in his heart, Vivi greeted the cowering Karoo, and quickly followed the two in front. Because of the huge size of the giant, although he does not seem to walk fast, the distance covered by each step is quite long. Because of Nami and Vivi following, Luffy can only take the two girls and trot towards there. Just when the three of Luffy were still trotting, there was a sense of vibration on the ground. Looking up, two huge figures are facing each other, the giant sword and the giant axe in their hands. In addition to Dory, whom the three of Luffy had just met, another giant also wore simple armor. However, because he was taking an axe, he did not wear a shield. The shock just now was obviously caused by the collision of these two giant swords and axes. The great sword and the axe did not last long, and quickly separated under the action of the master. At the moment when Dory separated the great sword from the axe, the shield in his left hand suddenly swung out and swiped towards the opposite giant. Dory's shield successfully hit the fat face of the opposite giant, but at the same time, the opposite giant also punched, hitting Dory's other cheek. The two took a step back at the same time. The ground and plants under their feet were in a mess, but the fighting intent in their eyes continued to burn. The two people who retreated did not stop, and after stabilizing their bodies, they simultaneously swung their giant sword and axe. Clang! The sound of a huge iron collision came again, and the entire little garden island was shaken violently again under this confrontation. The giants' movements are not agile, but the strength is incomparable, and every swipe of the two brings bursts of air. Well, so spectacular. Nami and Vivi, who had stopped, looked up at the scene in front of them, their mouths slightly open, shocked. Moving on any further, Nami and Vivi could be left with the aftermath of the fight. Besides, it was enough to see the battle between the two giants, and Luffy had no plans to move on. You wouldn't want to fight these two giants, would you? As if thinking of something, the recovered Nami looked at Luffy with dangerous eyes, as if Luffy would do something terrible if he dared to nod his head. And Vivi on the side also looked at Luffy after hearing Nami's words. You think of giants too much. Although the giants are born with great strength because of their size, they are also not fast because of their size. 55. Feeling the gazes of the two women, Luffy couldn't help it. Although his original intention was not to fight, but after all, it is the stunt of the giant clan, and they would not easily give it to him if he wanted to, and fighting may be inevitable. Nami, you should have seen my speed. If I want to dodge, it is impossible to hit me with the speed of these giants. Yes, you are fast, but will you dodge? I haven't forgotten the last time you resisted Hawkeye's attack. Seeing that Luffy really had plans to fight the giant, Nami was immediately excited. Oh, this time is really different. Last time I admitted that I was impulsive, but this time I can assure you that there will be no danger. 35. There's nothing Luffy can do. Although Nami is worried about himself, he can't give up the opportunity to become stronger because of this, right? Humph. You can figure it out for yourself. If you get hurt, you won't want to go to my bed in the future. Maybe because Luffy was really pissed off, Nami just said it in front of Vivi. Ah. Sure enough, before Luffy could speak, Vivi had already exclaimed. Although she knew that Luffy and Nami were close, Vivi obviously didn't expect the two to have that kind of relationship. Is that kind of relationship between Mr. Luffy and Miss Nami? For some reason, Vivi felt a faint sense of loss in his heart. In fact, Nami felt a little regretful when he said it. It's not a problem when two people say it, but when there are outsiders. It's all the fault of Luffy being angry with himself and making him look ugly. Not knowing that Nami had scolded himself in his heart, Luffy was not worried about Nami's words. Not to mention that these giants are indeed not opponents. Nami is thinking too much to stop herself from her bed. At that time, if she slips into her room while she is asleep, will she be able to kick herself out? Stop thinking about the unimportant things. Luffy continued to watch the battle between the two giants. The giants didn't use any special abilities, not even Haki. I don't know if they won't or what, they just attacked each other with weapons. Soon, the battle between the two giants came to an end, and looking at their panting appearances, it was obvious that they only had the strength for the last blow. Under the watchful eyes of the three of Luffy, Dory's sword and shield, and another giant's axe flew out at the same time under the parry of both sides. The two giants who lost their weapons punched at the same time and hit each other at the same time. Then, as if they had exhausted their last strength, the two giants fell backwards at the same time after receiving a punch in the face. Two gigantic figures fell to the ground, causing a burst of dust, and the gigantic bodies crushed all the trees they touched. The 73,460th battle. In. The two giants lying down made a sound at the same time, and then the two giants who were still fighting for life and death laughed again like good friends. What's the matter with them? It seemed like they were going all out just now, so why is this happening now? Nami didn't understand, and neither did Vivi. Luffy knew the reason, but didn't need to say it.
Hey, Dory, I met two guests today and they brought me wine. The fat-faced giant was lying on the ground and said to Dory, who was also lying on the ground. Great. I haven't had a drink in a long time. Give me some. Gia 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 Gia. One thing to say, this kind of laughter is really stupid. The two giants finally ended their fight, and it was time for Luffy to play. Nami, Vivi, let's go over. I'm here for them. If it goes well, maybe I don't need to fight them.